Chapter 320. Ice and Fire Lotus. I really don't know if the ice fire combined with the earth rank ice and fire energies will be able to break through the scales of the bloody horn dragon slaying flood dragon. Zhuo clenched his fists, and a blue crystal appeared in his right hand. Waves of blue cold air formed countless small vortexes on the surface of the crystal. It was the extreme cold frost. His left hand was the Nine Heavens Thunder Inferno, which was the combination of thunder and fire. Among the three earth flames, the Nine Heavens Thunder Blazing Flame was the most powerful. Therefore, the Nine Heavens Thunder Blazing Flame was the most suitable to combine with the ice fire. Kid, aren't you underestimating the power of the holy symbol of ice and fire? The ice fire combined with the earth rank ice and fire energies will definitely be able to break through the scales of the bloody horn dragon slaying flood dragon. Although it won't be able to kill it, it will be able to seriously injure it. Xiaohei sneered. Nodding slightly, Zhuo stared at the Nine Heavens Thunder Blazing Flame and extreme frost in his hands. Then, he slowly brought his hands together. The moment the two extreme energies came into contact with each other, a small explosion occurred within the two. At this moment, Zhuo's expression was extremely solemn. His arms had turned into a lustrous glass color. It was obvious that he had used the 6th level of the Jade Stone Body Tempering technique. However, even though his arms had turned into a hard glass color, the small explosion caused by the fusion of the Nine Heavens Thunder Blazing Flame and extreme frost still caused his arms to tremble. Sizzle. Some ear-piercing sounds were constantly emitted from Zhuo's hands. This was the sound produced by the two extreme energies rejecting each other during the fusion process. During this process, Zhuo could not let his guard down. If he failed, these two energies would explode instantly. At that time, even if Zhuo's physical body was strong, he would not be able to withstand the explosion of the earth rank ice and fire energies. The blending process only lasted for the time it would take to brew a cup of tea. Finally, Zhuo clapped his hands together. The extreme cold ice and the Nine Heavens Thunder Inferno instantly blended together flawlessly. A multicolored radiance suddenly blossomed between Zhuo's hands. Then, a multicolored lotus appeared between Zhuo's hand. The lotus flower, which was not tainted by the mud, slowly appeared on Zhuo's palm. A 5-colored brilliance surged out, forming a huge 5-colored rainbow bridge in the sky. At the same time, an extremely terrifying aura poured out from the 5-colored lotus flower. This aura was so powerful that it was far more powerful than that of the blood-horned dragon killing Jiao and Huoyang. At this moment, it was like a towering mountain that pressed down on the entire blood-red swamp and the surrounding thousands of miles. What a powerful aura! How can there be such a powerful aura? This aura is even more powerful than that of the blood-horned dragon killing Jiao. Many cultivators who had escaped from the blood-red swamp and were watching from 1,000 miles away could feel the sudden terrifying aura. They raised their heads and were shocked to see a youth with lightning wings on his back. At this moment, he was holding a 5-colored lotus flower in his hand. The terrifying aura was coming from the 5-colored lotus flower in his hand. It's the young man with the lightning wings. How did he manage to create such a terrifying thing? It's really too terrifying. Everyone stared blankly at the youth who was holding the 5-colored lotus flower in his hand. A trace of reverence appeared in their eyes. They could feel that the 5-colored lotus flower in the youth's hand was not inferior to that of an ultimate Emperor realm expert. Looking at the 5-colored lotus flower in his hand, Zhuo couldn't help but be stunned. In the past, the ice flame he had blended together had always been in the shape of a sphere. Why was it that the one he had created using the earth rank ice and fire energy was in the shape of a lotus? However, he could feel the terrifying power contained within the lotus flower. The ice flame's form has changed. Could it be because of the earth rank ice and fire energy? Zhuo frowned slightly as he muttered to himself in confusion. When the energy reaches a certain level, it will naturally have a fixed form. In the past, you had blended the earth rank ice and fire energy into a 5-colored sphere. It's not strange for you to use the earth rank ice and fire energy to form a 5-colored lotus flower, Xiaohei said indifferently as she crossed her little paws. So that's how it is. Then from now on, I'll name the ice fire lotus. Zhuo muttered to himself with a hint of joy on his face. You can name it however you like. For now, you should try out the might of this ice flame lotus. The blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon seems to have sensed the threat of the ice flame lotus in your hand. Perhaps it will run away when the time comes. Xiao Hei curled her lips and said. Zhuowen also regained his senses. Suddenly, he noticed that the blood-horned dragon killing Jiao, who was battling Huoyang in the distance, had become somewhat restless. From time to time, its lantern-sized eyes would look in Zhuowen's direction. Clearly, it had also sensed the threat of the fire and ice lotus. Blazing flames. Keep the bloodhorn dragon-slaying flood dragon busy. When Zhuowen saw the fear in the blood-horned dragon-killing flood dragon, he immediately ordered Huoyang, who was fighting with it, to restrain it. Following which, the lightning wings on Zhuowen's back suddenly flapped. His entire body turned into a flash of lightning and instantly arrived above the human and beast that were fighting. The powerful aura emitted by the ice and fire lotus immediately became even more intense. Awoo! The blood-horned dragon-slaying flood serpent roared anxiously. It could sense that the five-colored lotus in Zhuowen's hand was extremely dangerous. If it were to explode, it would not be able to gain any advantage. However, Huoyang continued to attack the blood-horned dragon-killing flood serpent. It could not escape at all. This made the blood-horned dragon-killing flood serpent even more anxious. In an instant, Zhuowen arrived at a place not far from Huoyang. With a wave of his right hand, Huoyang was kept into his Qiankuan bag. After which, he sneered at the bloodhorn dragon-slaying flood dragon and threw the ice-fire lotus towards it. The fire and ice lotus was as fast as lightning. Furthermore, Zhuowen was not far away from the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon. Hence, in the blink of an eye, the fire and ice lotus streaked across the sky and landed on the head of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon. Rumble. At the moment when the ice and fire lotus violently exploded, the entire world seemed to have become extremely quiet. However, this silence only lasted for a moment. Following which, a series of continuous explosions suddenly rang out in the middle of the blood-colored swamp. Soon after, a huge ball of light appeared in the middle of the blood-colored swamp. Together with the rising black smoke, the ball of light seemed to have enveloped the entire blood-colored swamp. Waves of tsunami-like airwaves continued to spread in all directions, blowing the trees along the way until they were swayed from side to side. At this moment, it was as if a scorching sun had risen above the blood-colored swamp. The dazzling light almost covered the entire area of Broken Rock City. Such a huge commotion naturally attracted the attention and astonishment of countless warriors within the area of Broken Rock City. What a powerful fluctuation! This fluctuation can only be emitted by an expert who is at least at the ultimate Emperor realm. Just which expert is actually fighting within the area of Broken Rock City that is under my jurisdiction? A tall figure silently hovered in the air above the Broken Rock City Lord's mansion. He gazed at the huge ball of light in the distance with an extremely grave expression. Moreover, there was a trace of anger between his brows. This person was the Broken Rock City Lord, Ouyang Yuntu. Ouyang, just what is going on? Why is there such a violent fluctuation? Another figure flew out from the Broken Rock City Lord's mansion and stopped beside Ouyang Yuntu. He asked with a frown. Senior Qiu, I also don't know what is going on. This fluctuation seems to be coming from the blood-colored swamp. There might be an ultimate Emperor realm expert fighting there. Ouyang Yuntu frowned and shook his head. The blood-colored swamp. Isn't Zhuowen in the blood-colored swamp right now? Not good. If it really is a battle between ultimate Emperor realm experts, then Zhuowen is in a very bad situation. Let's make a trip to the blood-colored swamp. Qiu Chou's expression changed slightly. He stomped his foot and stepped into the air towards the blood-colored swamp. His speed had almost reached an extreme. Ouyang Yuntu didn't hesitate and followed closely behind Qiu Chou. Even if Zhuowen wasn't in the blood-colored swamp, as the city lord, he couldn't just sit by and watch someone cause such a huge commotion in his territory. High above the blood-colored swamp, Zhuowen stood with his lightning wings on his back. His gaze was grave as he gazed at the huge ball of energy below. The might of the refinement of ice and fire was so great that even he, the creator, was left speechless. It actually covered the entire blood-colored swamp. One had to know that the swamp was several hundred kilometers wide. It wasn't easy to cover the entire swamp. At the same time, the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood serpent's shrill cries could be heard from below. Through the light ball, Zhuowen could vaguely see the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood serpent struggling inside. However, as time passed, its cries became weaker and weaker. This refinement of ice and fire is truly terrifying. The bloodhorn dragon-slaying flood dragon actually couldn't resist such an explosion. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a trace of shock. The might of the refinement of ice and fire was truly beyond his expectations. It's not surprising that it has such power. After all, the extreme frost and 9 heavens thunder inferno that you used were ranked at the top among all the earth-grade energies. Their foundations were already very strong to begin with, so when the two energies fused together, they would naturally become even stronger. However, didn't you notice the state of your hands? Xiaohei said. Hearing this, Zhuowen couldn't help but focus his gaze on his hands. He saw that his originally glassy palms had become a bloody mess. Blood continuously flowed out. What a powerful recoil. Even after using the 6th level of the Jade Stone body tempering technique, my hands are still in such a miserable state. If my physical body wasn't strong enough, wouldn't my hands be crippled? Zhuowen said with a wry smile. At the same time, the huge ball of light that almost covered the entire blood-colored swamp slowly withdrew its brilliance, revealing the condition of the bloodhorn dragon-slaying flood dragon. Chapter 321. Chapter 321 Advancement. The blood-red swamp, which was hundreds of miles wide, was in a complete mess at this moment. At a glance, it looked like a ruin. The swamp that was filled with mud had actually completely dried up, and a pit that was hundreds of meters deep had appeared. At the bottom of the pit were the corpses of origin beasts that had lost their lives. These meta-beasts had all died under the enormous force created by the explosion of the Icefire Lotus. The corpses of so many meta-beasts were piled up in the deep pit. At this moment, it appeared extremely spectacular. What a terrifying attack! It actually blasted such a huge hole in the entire blood-colored swamp. The countless Yuan beasts hidden in the depths of the swamp are basically all dead. This is really too terrifying. Is he still human? Even a dangerous place like the blood swamp was razed to the ground. This young man is too scary. It looks like he's only at the initial Heavenly King realm. Could he be a powerful ultimate Emperor realm expert in disguise? Looking at the huge crater that was several hundred miles wide, the cultivators watching from afar were all stunned. Everyone thought they were seeing an illusion. One of Broken Rock City's famous danger zones, the Blood Swamp, was destroyed by a seemingly harmless young man with a single strike. At the top of the deep pit, the enormous body of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood serpent twitched continuously. At this moment, its condition was extremely miserable. The seemingly indestructible blood-colored scales on its body had actually cracked open. Traces of blood flowed out from the cracks of the scales, almost forming a blood-colored river on the ground. The vitality of this blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon is quite strong. It is actually still alive after taking the fire and ice lotus head-on. Zhuowen muttered to himself as he looked at the twitching blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon. Xiaohei shrugged and said, "But I'm not far from death. This bloodhorn dragon-slaying flood dragon is an ultimate emperor-level origin beast after all. Moreover, it has a trace of the true dragon's bloodline in its body. Therefore, its body must have developed a Yuan Dan. This Yuan Dan is a great supplement for this dragon lord." He rolled his eyes speechlessly at Xiaohei. No wonder this fellow had taken the initiative to lure the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon. It turned out that he was aiming for the flood dragon's inner core. Gently nodding his head, Zhuowen slowly descended and arrived in front of the bloodhorn dragon-slaying flood dragon. Looking at the blood-colored flood dragon that was on the verge of death, Zhuowen's eyes were extremely cold. His right hand patted his Chenkuan bag and took out the demon moon dragon spine spear. Following the crack in the scales of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon, Zhuowen thrust out his right hand and the moon demon dragon spine spear pierced through the crack and into the body of the flood dragon. Awoo! The blood-horned dragon-slaying flood serpent roared weakly. It could only watch as Zhuowen stabbed the moon demon dragon's pine spear into its body. It could not resist at all. Now, its body had entered a state of near death. It would not live for much longer. When the moon demon dragon spine spear pierced into the body of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon, it emitted a loud and clear buzzing sound. Following which, it began to absorb the essence blood of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon. The moon demon dragon spine spear had the ability to devour the essence blood of primordial beasts. Now that it had pierced into the body of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon, it naturally absorbed the rich essence blood of the former's body and used it to continuously increase its power. Xiao He. You can deal with the inner core yourself. Staring at the moon demon dragon spine spear, which was continuously absorbing the essence blood of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon, Zhuowen was in a good mood. That's for sure. However, kid, let me remind you that the bloodhorn on the head of this beast is not weak. If you refine it properly, its power will not be weaker than an ordinary high-grade soul treasure. You can give this bloodhorn to your puppet, Huoyang. When the time comes, Huoyang's power will increase significantly. After Xiao He finished speaking, he disappeared into the body of the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon. Evidently, he had gone to look for the inner core. Bloodhorn? When he heard these words, Zhuowen's eyes instantly lit up. Then, he stared at the bloodhorn on the flood dragon's forehead. He never thought that the power of this bloodhorn would be comparable to a high-grade soul treasure. Looks like it was extraordinary. When he arrived in front of the flood dragon, he realized that it was so weak that it could not even move. It was likely that it would not be long before it died. However, when the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon saw Zhuowen in front of it, its large eyes filled with hatred as it stared viciously at the tiny human before it. Are you unwilling to accept this? However, this is how the world works. The winner is king while the loser is in the wrong. The strongest is king. Since you've lost today, you naturally won't be able to live. If I were to lose one day, my fate would not be any better than yours. Therefore, your unwillingness and hatred are meaningless. Zhuowen calmly spoke to the flood dragon in front of him. He knew that the flood dragon before him was at the ultimate emperor stage and its intelligence was not any weaker than a human's. Naturally, it could understand his words. The blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon seemed to understand Zhuowen's words. The hatred in its large eyes slowly dissipated and was replaced by a complicated expression. Then, it slowly closed its eyes and stopped breathing. The reason why it did not die earlier was because of the unwillingness in its heart. Now that it no longer had any stubbornness in its heart, it naturally passed away. Zhuowen sighed and shook his head. Then, he turned his gaze to the bloodhorn on the flood dragon's forehead. The bloodhorn was 10 feet long and its shape was triangular. The higher it went, the narrower it became. Finally, when it reached the tip, it looked like a long spear. Using the boundless sword aura, Zhuowen spent a lot of effort to remove the bloodhorn from the flood dragon's forehead. Weighing the sharp and shiny bloodhorn in his hand, Zhuowen smiled and said to himself, if Huoyang uses this bloodhorn as a weapon, his strength will probably reach a whole new level. As he spoke, Zhuowen kept the bloody horn into his Chenkuan bag. Soon after, his gaze turned towards the demon moon dragon spine spear, which was inserted into the blood-horned dragon killing Jiao's body. As the demonic moondragon spine spear continued to absorb the blood essence from the bloodhorn dragon killing flood serpent's body, the aura of the demonic moondragon spine spear grew stronger and stronger. Furthermore, the appearance of the demonic moondragon spine spear had changed quite a bit. The originally ink-black spear handle had now completely turned blood-red, as if it had been dyed in blood. If one were to get closer, one could even smell the faint scent of blood. The body of the demon moon dragon spine spear trembled when the bloody stench reached its peak. With a swoosh sound, it flew out and returned to Zhuowen's hand. The promotion has succeeded. A glint flashed across Zhuowen's eyes. As he stared at the blood-red long spear in his hand, an excited smile appeared on his face. The demon moon dragon spine spear had finally been promoted from a middle-grade soul treasure to a high-grade soul treasure. At the same time, the demon moon dragon spine spear emitted a clear dragon roar. Soon after, a message was transmitted into Zhuowen's mind. The remaining 3 great moves of the Demon Moon Secret Manual. Zhuowen could not help but mutter to himself as he silently sensed the message in his mind. The Demon Moon Secret Manual originally had 5 great moves. Among them, the first move, Full Moon Tower, and the second move, Blood Moon Soul, were already mastered by Zhuowen. As for the remaining 3 great moves, he could only use them after the Demon Moondragon Spine Spear had been promoted to a high-grade soul treasure. Now that the Demon Moondragon Spine Spear had been promoted to a high-grade soul treasure, the weapon spirit within naturally taught the remaining 3 great moves to Zhuowen. The third move of the Demon Moon Secret Manual was called Blood Maple Dance. It used one's essence blood as a guide, and countless blood-red maple leaves would form in a 30-feet radius around one's body. These blood-red maple leaves possessed an extremely terrifying corrosive power. It could be used both offensively and defensively, and could be considered a more comprehensive move. The fourth move of the Demon Moon Secret Manual was called Blood Rupture Move. The Demon Moondragon Spine Spear would erupt with a bloody aura, causing the wielder's strength to instantly increase by 50%. A single spear strike would be able to shatter mountains and split rocks. The fifth move of the Demon Moon Secret Manual was called Blood Explosion Move. It could absorb the enemy's blood and gather them into palm-sized blood balls that would revolve around the wielder's body. With just a thought, these blood balls would explode according to the wielder's wishes. The stronger the enemy, the more powerful the blood balls would be. These 3 great moves are truly powerful. No wonder Xiao He said that as long as the Demon Moondragon Spine Spear was promoted to a high-grade soul treasure, its power would be comparable to an earthly soul treasure when combined with the Demon Moon Secret Manual. Especially the fifth move, Blood Explosion Move. Its effect is truly terrifying. Once this move is unleashed, it would be an extremely powerful move for both a group attack and a solo battle. After understanding the introduction of the remaining 3 great moves of the Demon Moon Secret Manual, Zhuowen's face was filled with joy. The power of these 3 great moves had somewhat exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. Swoosh! A black shadow suddenly appeared in front of Zhuowen. It was Xiao He, who had a rather pleased smile on his face. At this moment, Xiao He was holding a palm-sized black bead in his hand. Evidently, this was the so-called Yuan Dan. This blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon has indeed not disappointed me. There is indeed a Yuan Dan inside. Although its quality is not high, it is still pretty good. As he spoke, Xiao He's gaze fell on the Demon Moondragon Spine Spear in Zhuowen's hand. The Demon Moondragon Spine Spear has been successfully upgraded, right? It looks pretty good. Yes. I have also taken a look at the remaining 3 moves of the Demon Moon Secret Manual. They are indeed very powerful. If combined with this Demon Moondragon Spine Spear, it is completely comparable to an earthly soul treasure. Xiao He slightly nodded his head. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. Immediately, he turned into a wisp of black smoke and entered between Zhuowen's eyebrows. At the same time, Xiao He's voice rang out in Zhuowen's mind. Someone is coming. I will hide for a while. Upon hearing this, Zhuowen could not help but raise his head to look at the horizon. He saw 2 black shadows rapidly rushing over. In the blink of an eye, they directly arrived at the blood-colored swamp that had already turned into a giant pit. These 2 figures also saw Zhuowen in the deep pit. Their feet stepped on the air and instantly arrived in front of Zhuowen. Greetings to City Governor Ouyang and Elder Qiu. Looking at the 2 people in front of him, Zhuowen respectfully bowed. With regards to the arrival of these 2 people, Zhuowen was not at all surprised. The commotion just now was too great. After all, these 2 people were the representatives of Broken Rock City. It was impossible for them to ignore such a huge commotion. At this moment, their faces were filled with shock. They did not expect the blood-colored swamp to become like this. At the same time, they also saw the enormous blood-horned dragon-slaying serpent behind Zhuowen. The shock on their faces became even more intense. Zhuowen, who killed this blood-horned dragon-slaying serpent? This is a Yuan beast with strength at the ultimate emperor stage. Ouyang Yuntu stared straight at Zhuowen as he questioned. Scratching his head, Zhuowen somewhat embarrassedly said, I accidentally killed it. Chapter 322. Half a year you killed it. This bloodhorn dragon slaying flood dragon had the strength of an ultimate Emperor realm expert. How did you kill it? Ouyang Yuntu frowned as he stared at the youth before him with some doubt. Although Zhuowen had always been mysterious, he didn't think that Zhuowen, who was only at the initial level of the Heavenly King stage, had the strength to kill an ultimate Emperor realm origin beast. The gap between the two was just too great. Even Cho, who had always trusted Zhuowen, had a trace of doubt on his face. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Zhuowen, but that Zhuowen's words were too outrageous. The gap between the ultimate Emperor realm and the Heavenly King stage was like a chasm. It was very rare for a Heavenly King stage cultivator to defeat an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Zhuowen had already expected that Ouyang Yuntu and Cho would have doubts about him. He patted his Chenkuan bag and summoned blazing flames. Many cultivators had seen his battle with the bloodhorn dragon slaying flood dragon, so blazing flames would be exposed sooner or later. Therefore, he didn't plan to hide it from the two in front of him. This is an ultimate Emperor realm expert. Ouyang Yuntu and Cho stared blankly at blazing flames. Their pupils shrank as they couldn't help but cry out in surprise. To be more precise, it should be a puppet with the strength of an ultimate Emperor realm expert. It's not a real person. Now do you believe that I have the strength to kill this bloodhorn dragon slaying flood dragon? Zhuowen spread his hands and smiled faintly. It is indeed a puppet. I didn't expect you to have such a powerful puppet. It seems like you have a lot of secrets. Cho nodded as he stared deeply at Zhuowen. At this moment, Ouyang Yuntu and Cho's expressions became extremely solemn. There was a faint trace of fear in their eyes as they looked at Zhuowen. They realized that the youth before them was like a black hole. The closer they got to him, the more mysterious and extraordinary he seemed. I was just lucky. Zhuowen laughed and didn't continue speaking. After all, he understood that the more he spoke, the more likely he would be to be at fault. Although Ouyang Yuntu and Cho didn't have any ill intentions towards him, Zhuowen had a lot of secrets. He didn't dare to be frank with the two of them. Otherwise, he might get into trouble. Hearing Zhuowen's words, Ouyang Yuntu and Cho knew that Zhuowen didn't want to dwell on this topic, so they tactfully didn't pursue the matter. After chatting with Ouyang Yuntu and Cho for a while, Zhuowen took the initiative to bid them farewell. He activated his thunderous snake wings and flew towards Broken Rock City. Ouyang Yuntu bitterly said as he watched Zhuowen's figure gradually disappear into the distance. Originally, this old man had always thought that Zhuowen had already used all his strength in the previous battle for the 9 Extreme Royal Origin Pool. Now that I think about it, I realize that such a thought is rather laughable. Even I am unable to see through this little fellow's true strength. This child's innate talent is extraordinary, and his methods are innumerable. It can be said that he is an extremely terrifying fellow. I'm afraid that in the upcoming battle for the Origin Chi Tower, this child is very likely to be a dark horse. Cho muttered as his eyes flickered. Senior Cho is right. This child is indeed terrifying. It seems that we must establish a good relationship with him. However, this blood swamp has almost been destroyed. I'm afraid that even the two of us would have to use all of our strength to accomplish such a feat. However, this old man could sense that the puppet Zhuowen summoned was merely at the first wheel ultimate Emperor realm. Could it be that it possessed such destructive power? Looking down at the blood swamp that had almost turned into an abyss, Ouyang Yuntu's heart was filled with a trace of doubt. Such destructive power was something that even a first wheel ultimate Emperor realm expert would find difficult to achieve. Only a second wheel ultimate Emperor realm expert or above would barely be able to cause such destruction. Could it be that the one who destroyed the blood swamp was someone else? Cho asked with some doubt. There are many cultivators in the forest several hundred miles away. I recognize them as well. They are all adventurers who frequently enter the blood swamp. Perhaps they will know the truth of what happened just now. Ouyang Yuntu gazed into the distance, his gaze locked onto a forest several hundred miles away. At this moment, there were still many cultivators standing there, watching. Whoosh! The two of them stepped into the air and instantly arrived above the forest, looking down at the cultivators below. Greetings, My lords. Seeing Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou step through the air, the cultivators knew that these two were definitely ultimate Emperor realm experts or above. They immediately cupped their hands respectfully and spoke carefully. You should be adventurers who frequently enter the blood swamp, right? Tell us, what happened in the blood swamp just now? Why was the blood swamp destroyed? Ouyang Yuntu asked indifferently. The cultivators glanced at each other. Then, a man who seemed to be the leader stepped forward and said with some hesitation, We did see what happened in the blood swamp just now. In the beginning, it was the youth with the lightning wings who suddenly appeared above the blood swamp. The man narrated everything that had happened in the blood swamp in full detail, especially when he mentioned that Zhuowen had used the sacred symbol of ice and fire to create the ice and fire lotus that had blasted the entire blood swamp into a giant crater. That kind of power was truly earth-shattering, as if the heavens and earth had collapsed. Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou, who had been indifferent at the beginning, had their expressions turn grave. In the end, their faces were filled with shock. The two of them looked at each other and saw the deep disbelief in each other's eyes. You said that the youth with the lightning wings used a strange five-colored lotus, and that it was that five-colored lotus that destroyed the entire blood swamp? Ouyang Yuntu asked, still looking at the man in front of him in disbelief. Yes. The power of that five-colored lotus was extremely terrifying. Although it was only the size of a palm, the energy that erupted from it was something that even the blood-horned dragon-slaying serpent couldn't resist. When the man mentioned the five-colored lotus, there was still a trace of lingering fear on his face. It was obvious that the power of the ice and fire lotus had truly shocked him. It seems that Zhuowen is still hiding a lot of things. That kid actually has such a trick up his sleeve. If that so-called five-colored lotus is really so powerful, then doesn't that mean that Zhuowen has the strength to kill an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator? Ouyang Yuntu's eyes were filled with complicated emotions as he smiled bitterly. This person doesn't seem to be lying. I'm afraid that the one who caused the blood swamp to become like this really is Zhuowen. This kid is becoming more and more unfathomable. I've never seen Zhuowen use that so-called five-colored lotus before. Qiu Chou shook his head and said bitterly. However, the two of them didn't know that although the ice and fire lotus was extremely powerful, its side effects were also extremely abnormal. Even with Zhuowen's physical body that was comparable to an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, he could only use the ice and fire lotus once. If he used it repeatedly, Zhuowen's arms would probably collapse from the backlash. After returning to Broken Rock City, Zhuowen went directly to Grandmaster Kang Mu's loft. He was prepared to enter secluded cultivation for the next half a year, striving to reach the great circle of the Heavenly King realm or even the ultimate Emperor realm. After all, Zhuowen had soaked in the 9 Extreme Emperor Origin Pool for 3 days and 3 nights, so there was a lot of energy accumulated in his body. As time passed, this energy would continuously dissipate into his limbs and bones, greatly increasing his cultivation efficiency. It could be said that he was advancing at a tremendous pace. It was because of this benefit that Zhuowen was confident that his strength would advance by leaps and bounds in the next half a year. Grandmaster Kang Mu also knew that Zhuowen was going to enter secluded cultivation to prepare for the upcoming battle for the Origin Chi Tower, so he didn't disturb Zhuowen. Instead, he helped Zhuowen deal with the forces of Broken Rock City that came because of Zhuowen's fame. After the Arcane Art ceremony and the battle for the 9 Extreme Emperor Origin Pool, Zhuowen's limelight was unparalleled in Broken Rock City. It could be said that many people often took delight in talking about him. Naturally, there was an endless stream of people who came to visit him. These people naturally needed someone to deal with them. Since Zhuowen was in secluded cultivation, this kind of thing was naturally done by Grandmaster Kang Mu. Time flew by. The warm spring with blooming flowers turned into autumn with falling maple leaves in the blink of an eye. The bleak autumn wind would occasionally blow up the withered leaves on the ground, sprinkling them down and turning them into melancholy, creak. In the depths of an inconspicuous loft, a large door slowly opened and a 17-year-old youth walked out. The youth slowly strolled into the courtyard and looked at the withered old trees outside the courtyard. A helpless smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as he muttered, "Time really flies. Half a year has passed in the blink of an eye." A black light swept out from between the youth's eyebrows and turned into a Xiaohei dog. It looked straight at the youth in front of it and said, "In the past half a year, your strength has increased very quickly. You've actually reached the peak of the Heavenly King stage. I'm afraid that you're not far from the Ultimate Emperor stage." Yes. The 9 Extreme Emperor Origin Pool has indeed brought me great benefits. Although only half a year has passed, the cultivation efficiency is equivalent to several years. I feel that I might be able to naturally reach the Ultimate Emperor stage in less than 3 months. As for breaking through to the Ultimate Emperor stage, I'm afraid that it will be somewhat difficult, Zhuowen said indifferently as he reached out and gently pinched a fallen leaf. You've actually gained a lot in the past half a year. Not only have you learned the 3rd to 5th forms of the Demon Moon Secret Manual, you've even completely comprehended the 3 great sword techniques of the Boundless Sword Intent. Although your strength is only at the peak of the Heavenly King stage, if you unleash your full strength, I'm afraid that you'll be able to fight against an Ultimate Emperor stage cultivator. Of course, if you use the Fire and Ice Lotus, even an Ultimate Emperor stage cultivator would fall. Xiaohei smiled and said somewhat mockingly, "The Fire and Ice Lotus is my final trump card. Moreover, its side effects are extremely great. I won't foolishly use it unless I have to fight for my life." Zhuowen shrugged and curled his lips. However, there are only 5 months until the Origin Energy Pagoda battle. 3 months before the battle, all participating cities must send their respective geniuses to the provincial capital. I should return to Rattan Armor City to prepare. Chapter 323. Representing Rattan Armor City in the main hall of Broken Rock City's City Lord's Mansion, Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou looked at Zhuowen in shock. Ouyang Yuntu frowned and asked, "Zhuowen, do you really plan on returning to Rattan Armor City?" "Yes. This humble one has come to bid farewell to the 2 seniors. I am very grateful for the help you've given me in the past. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay this debt of gratitude." Zhuowen cupped his hands and spoke in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. "Zhuowen, as far as I know, Rattan Armor City is only a low-level city. Could it be that you plan on representing Rattan Armor City in this Origin Chi Tower battle?" Qiu Chou frowned slightly, his expression somewhat displeased. This old man is not looking down on Rattan Armor City, but the first few stages of the Origin Chi Tower battle are all represented by cities. We all acknowledge your strength, but it seems that Rattan Armor City only has 3 spots. Moreover, the other 2 can't possibly be as heaven-defying as you. With such a weak force, it's very easy for other powerful cities to target you in the early stages and eliminate you. Qiu Chou stared straight at the youth in front of him. Ouyang Yuntu also nodded and said, "Although the final 100 spots in the Origin Chi Tower battle are determined by individual strength, the early stages of the Origin Chi Tower battle are all carried out as team. For example, our super cities basically have a dozen or so spots, and most of them are at the Heavenly King realm or above. The strongest, Hanxian, is about to reach the Ultimate Emperor realm. Although your individual strength is strong, the Origin Chi Tower battle isn't won by just relying on one person. It also requires a rather powerful team. Your Rattan Armor City's spots are too few. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to survive the early stages of the Origin Chi Tower battle. This old man can make an exception and give you a spot to join Broken Rock City. Relying on the power of Broken Rock City and your own strength, I'm afraid you have a high chance of entering the top 100 in the Origin Chi Tower battle." Ouyang Yuntu also stared straight at Zhuowen, his eyes filled with anticipation. Ever since Zhuowen had single-handedly killed the blood-horned dragon-slaying flood dragon half a year ago, he clearly understood how terrifying the strength of the youth before him was. As long as they could rope him into their Broken Rock City, they would definitely have a glorious result in the Yuan Chi Tower battle. Zhuowen could not help but frown when he heard this. He did not expect there to be such a rule in the tower battle. Just as Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou had said, if the early stages of the tower battle really used this kind of method to eliminate the representatives, then Rattan Armor City would be in a very bad situation. After all, Rattan Armor City was only a low-level city. In terms of foundation, it could not compare to those high-level cities. Moreover, In terms of quantity and quantity, it was far inferior compared to those high-level cities. It would be too difficult for Rattan Armor City to achieve anything in the tower battle. No wonder it's so difficult for warriors from low-level cities to enter the top 100 of the Tower of Origin Energy. They can't even enter the top 1000. It turns out that they were eliminated by other high-level cities in the early stages of the Tower of Origin Energy battle. Zhuo Wen frowned as he helplessly muttered to himself. He also remembered that Rattan Armor City's city lord, Jiu Tian, had said that even if someone from Rattan Armor City entered the top 1000, they would be thankful. The top 1000 warriors would all receive rewards from the House of Marquis Qin. The higher the rank, the more precious the rewards the city would receive. It was said that there was once an unknown middle-level city that gave birth to a few monstrous geniuses. In the tower battle, these monstrous geniuses overcame all the difficulties and climbed their ranks until they finally broke into the top 100. At that time, these monstrous geniuses were valued by the House of Marquis Qin and were nurtured as important targets. Later on, without exception, they all became famous experts in the Qing Xian Empire. The middle-level city that these monstrous geniuses came from also received a large number of treasures from the House of Marquis Qin as a reward. From then on, it rose from an unknown middle-level city to an overlord-level city. This was a rather sensational story at that time. Zhuowen, haven't you always been eager to enter the top 100 of the tower battle? With your Rattan Armor City's pitiful foundation and the scarce 3 spots, not to mention the top 100, it would be difficult to even enter the top 1000. Our Broken Rock City welcomes you at any time. This old man is even willing to give you the position of the leader of Broken Rock City this time. How about it? Ouyang Yuntu also saw the hesitation on Zhuowen's face. He really didn't want to waste a talent like Zhuowen in a weak city like Rattan Armor City. He believed that Zhuowen's strength was not inferior to Ouyang Hanxuan's, and might even be much stronger than Ouyang Hanxian. How could he let go of such a young talent? Qiu Chou couldn't help but look at Ouyang Yuntu with some astonishment. He didn't expect that Ouyang Yuntu would actually give the position of leader of Broken Rock City to Zhuowen in order to keep Zhuowen. This showed Ouyang Yuntu's determination. Don't underestimate the position of leader. The leader of a city, especially the leader of a super city like Broken Rock City, basically had very high treatment and privileges. Moreover, the super city would even take out extremely rare treasures like Earthrank soul treasures for the leader to use. Because the leader represented the strongest person in the team, he naturally had the qualifications to command the other members and would be bestowed with Earthrank soul treasures. Although they were only low-grade Earthrank soul treasures, their power was much stronger than high-grade soul treasures. Therefore, the position of leader could be said to have many benefits. Zhuowen didn't understand the significance of being a leader, but even if he did, he probably wouldn't care. After all, the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron on him was a powerful Earthrank soul treasure. Moreover, it was a top-grade Earthrank soul treasure. Zhuowen suspected that if he could collect 9 types of earth fire, the power of the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron would be comparable to a top-grade Earthrank soul treasure. Earthrank soul treasures were also divided into low-grade, mid-grade, high-grade, and the extremely rare top-grade. Above Earthrank soul treasures were Heavenrank soul treasures. They were also divided into low-grade, mid-grade, high-grade, and top-grade. However, Earthrank soul treasures were already extremely rare, let alone the even higher-grade Heavenrank soul treasures. Even super cities wouldn't be able to take out such a soul treasure. Only powers at the level of the 3 marquises of the county capital could possibly have such a peerless Heavenrank soul treasure. At this moment, Ouyang Yuntu was full of hope as he looked at the youth in front of him. If Zhuowen could join their Broken Rock City, their strength in this Vitality Tower battle would definitely increase by another level, and their ranking would also rise by a lot. After pondering for a moment, Zhuowen suddenly shook his head and said somewhat apologetically, "City Lord Ouyang, I'm very sorry, but I can't agree to your request. I've decided to return to Rattan Armor City and represent it in this Vitality Tower battle." Ouyang Yuntu and Zhuowen heard this and couldn't help but be surprised. After all, Ouyang Yuntu had already made a lot of concessions and benefits. He was even willing to give him the position of leader, but Zhuoan actually refused. Zhuoan, perhaps you don't know the significance of being a leader of a supercity. Apart from having an extremely high status and rallying power, the leader will also be bestowed with an Earthrank soul treasure by our City Lord's mansion. Moreover, you'll be allowed to choose any resources of our City Lord's mansion. Don't tell me you're not prepared to join our Broken Rock City with such conditions. Ouyang Yuntu was somewhat anxious and hurriedly explained the benefits of being a leader to Zhuoan, as well as the more generous conditions that followed. City Lord Ouyang. Suddenly, Zhuoan interrupted Ouyang Yuntu and deeply bowed to him. Then, his expression turned solemn. I'm very grateful for your high regard for this humble one, but sometimes, there are things that can't be given up. Rattan Armor City is the place where I was born. It's my hometown. At the same time, it contains my family, my relatives, my friends, and everyone I know. These are all ties that I can't let go of. I can't cut them off, and I can't betray them. Even if it's weak, even if it's lowly, I still won't abandon it. These ties aren't something that can be exchanged with any treasure. The reason why I refuse your invitation is not because your conditions aren't tempting enough, but because Rattan Armor City is my home. I only want to struggle, fight, and live for my home. Like a moth flying into a flame, sometimes, even if you know you can't do it, you still do it. After bowing deeply, Zhuoan decisively turned around and slowly left the City Lord's mansion, leaving behind only a stubborn and unyielding back view. As for Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou, they stared blankly at the gradually disappearing figure. After a long while, they finally came back to their senses. In the end, the two of them looked at each other and bitterly smiled. What a stubborn, loyal little guy. With such a loyal and extremely talented genius, Rattan Armor City will definitely be something special in the future. However, Rattan Armor City is still too weak right now. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for us to get a good ranking in the Origin Energy Tower battle. Ouyang Yuntu sighed and lamented. I don't think so. Perhaps this little guy can create a miracle. After all, along the way, which one of the things this little guy has done isn't shocking? That's why this old man believes in Zhuoan. Qiu Chou shook his head and looked at the proud and aloof figure in the distance with an appreciative smile on his face. At this moment, in the provincial capital, thousands of miles away from Broken Rock City, a huge castle that resembled a black dragon sat on top of a huge mountain range. This castle was the house of Marquis Qin, the most powerful faction in the provincial capital. In a luxurious pavilion within the house of Marquis Qin, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly surged out. This aura even gathered a huge storm in the air above the pavilion. Countless amounts of heaven and earth energy poured into the pavilion. What a powerful aura! Another person has broken through to the ultimate emperor realm. That pavilion is the third prince's bedroom. It looks like the third prince has broken through to the ultimate emperor realm. That's not strange. Ever since the third prince returned from the ancient cavern mansion 2 years ago, he's been cultivating like crazy. Coupled with the endless supply of precious resources from the mansion, it's normal for the third prince to break through in 2 years. Inside the house of Marquis Qin, cultivators all raised their heads to look at the huge commotion in the distant pavilion and immediately began to discuss spiritedly. Boom! The door to the pavilion suddenly shattered. A slender figure suddenly appeared outside the pavilion and laughed loudly towards the sky. Ha ha! He's finally broken through. No wonder they say that cultivators will undergo a qualitative transformation when they reach the ultimate emperor realm. I can feel this powerful energy that can control the heavens and earth. This feeling is wonderful. Chapter 324. General Fei Long Haha. In just 2 short years, you've broken through from the peak of the Earth Monarch stage to the Ultimate Emperor stage. Third Brother's talent is truly astonishing. If Third Brother had cultivated as hard as he has in the past 2 years, even if he's not as good as me, I'm afraid he wouldn't be too far off. A soft chuckle suddenly rang out. Then, from another luxurious pavilion in the house of Marquis Qin, an elegant blue figure flew over and stopped in front of Lu Yuanhua in an instant with a smile on his face. Second Brother, you've also come out of seclusion. Did you break through as well? Lu Yuanhua asked joyfully as he looked at the handsome blue-clothed young man in front of him. The blue-clothed young man was the second prince of the house of Marquis Qin, and also Lu Yuanhua's second brother, Lu Yongsheng. He was a famous person on the Azure Emperor leaderboard and was rather powerful among the Ultimate Emperor stage cultivators. Haha. Third brother, you've also broken through. Can't you allow your second brother to break through as well? I broke through to the Ultimate Emperor stage a month ago, and my ranking on the Azure Emperor leaderboard has also risen slightly, Lu Yongsheng said with a refined smile on his face. Then I really have to congratulate second brother, Ultimate Emperor stage. There aren't many people in the younger generation in the entire county who have reached this level of strength. Second brother's talent is truly extraordinary. Lu Yuanhua couldn't contain his joy and hurriedly congratulated him. My strength can't be considered as extraordinary. Only Big Brother is worthy of such a description. I heard that Big Brother's ranking has risen from 17th to 15th on the Azure Emperor leaderboard of the Imperial Capital County. I'm afraid Big Brother's closed-door cultivation this time is the one who has benefited the most. Lu Yongsheng shook his head and said proudly. The Qing Emperor board was a heaven-class spiritual treasure personally refined by the ruler of the Qing Xian Empire, the Qing Emperor. This spiritual treasure didn't have any offensive capabilities, but it had a powerful spiritual sense that could sense the aura of a cultivator. This spiritual sense could cover almost the entire Qing Xian Empire. If one's soul consciousness discovered a cultivator below the age of 30 within the territory of the Qing Xian Empire, their aura would be recorded on the list. After that, they would be displayed on the Qing Xian ranking board according to their ranking. There were a total of 100 names from the lowest to the highest. The Crown Prince of the House of Marquis Qin, LV Itao, was the undisputed number one person among the younger generation in Muqin County. His strength had been able to enter the 17th place on the Azure Emperor leaderboard in the past. After a few years of seclusion, his strength had greatly improved, and his ranking had risen by 2 places to the 15th place. The 15th place wasn't a big deal. One should know that the Qing Xian Empire had a total of 9 counties. Among them, the Imperial Capital County was the most important county in the entire Qing Xian Empire. It was a huge county where the Qing Emperor presided over. Its territory occupied almost a third of the Qing Xian Empire's area. There were many outstanding talents and geniuses there. It was much stronger than the other 8 counties. The top 10 young experts on the Qing Emperor board were basically all young geniuses from the Imperial Capital County. It was almost impossible for the geniuses from other counties to squeeze into the top 10. LV Itao was able to squeeze into the 17th place in the past, which showed that his strength was very good. Now that he had risen by 2 places to the 15th place, it could be said that he was extremely abnormal. In the other 8 counties, his ranking could already be ranked in the top 3. After all, the Imperial Capital County also had some places in the top 20. As expected of Big Brother, with Big Brother's strength, he obviously doesn't care about the Vitality Tower battle. The first place is destined to be his. LV Yuanhua heard this and his face was full of surprise. Of course, the reason why Big Brother has been working so hard all these years is because of the battle of the 9 counties that will be held after the Vitality Tower battle. Back then, Big Brother participated in the battle of the 9 counties with the other experts in the prefecture. It was really too tragic. In the last battle of the 9 counties, too many experts died and Big Brother was lucky enough to survive. In fact, he has never been able to forget it. LV Yongsheng said with a slight sigh. In the last battle of the 9 counties, our Muqin County was ranked 8th, almost second to last. Our results were really bad. However, that was because Big Brother was still weak back then. Now that Big Brother is so strong, he can definitely lead our Muqin County to a glorious record of being in the top 3. LV Yuanhua said in a low voice. Let's not talk about this anymore. Now that your strength has reached the Ultimate Emperor realm, you should use the remaining time to consolidate your strength. It shouldn't be a problem for you to enter the top 100 in the Vitality Tower battle. Speaking of which, your current achievements are all thanks to Zhuowen's stimulation. If that kid hadn't defeated you, who knows when you would have worked hard. LV Yongsheng said with a laugh. That Zhuowen? Now that I've also advanced to the ultimate emperor realm, it's enough for me to repay the humiliation of the ancient cave mansion. I will make that Zhuoan regret everything he did to me back then. At the mention of Zhuoan, the corners of LV Yuanhua's eyes twitched and he said with resentment. Looking at LV Yuanhua's gloomy face, LV Yongsheng frowned and said, "Third brother, that Zhuoan is only a lowly commoner from a low-level city. What kind of status do you have? Do you need to personally deal with him? Moreover, with the pitiful foundation of a low-level city, that Zhuoan's strength definitely won't improve much in these 2 years. As for you, you are the third prince of Muqin County's number 1 faction, the House of Marquis Qin. You have endless resources. The gap between you and that lowly commoner will only grow bigger and bigger. I'm afraid that lowly commoner hasn't even broken through to the heavenly king realm yet. To you, he's like an ant that you can squash with just a little strength. You don't need to lower yourself to deal with that lowly commoner. Just properly prepare for the battle for the Origin Qi Tower." Hearing this, LV Yuanhua's face was filled with unwillingness. However, he would never forget how that despicable brat Zhuoan had stepped on his face in front of so many people 2 years ago. That kind of humiliation had always lingered in his mind. It was also the driving force behind his crazy cultivation for the past 2 years. All right. Seeing your unwillingness, I'll send General Fei Long to Ratanama City and directly wipe out that Zhuoan and Ratanama City. You can focus on preparing for the battle for the Origin Qi Tower. There's no need to be distracted by these trivial matters. Seeing the unwillingness on LV Yuanhua's face, LV Yongsheng shrugged helplessly. Oh, but that General Fei Long who escaped from an ultimate emperor realm expert is second brother's capable general. You're actually willing to send him out? LV Yuanhua looked at LV Yongsheng in astonishment. You and I are brothers. Your second brother naturally won't let you be humiliated for no reason. General Fei Long is someone who can escape from an ultimate emperor realm expert. He's at the peak of the half-step ultimate emperor realm. Just General Fei Long alone is enough to uproot Ratanama City. When the time comes, I'll have General Fei Long capture that Zhuoan alive and let you do whatever you want with him. LV Yongsheng patted LV Yuanhua's shoulder and said with concern. Seeing the deep concern in LV Yongsheng's eyes, LV Yuanhua's heart warmed. He said, "Then I'll have to thank second brother. Millimeter, go back and make your preparations. It's really not worth it to lose your composure over a lowly ant." LV Yuanhua nodded slightly and cupped his hands towards LV Yongsheng before returning to his loft. He'd just broken through to the next realm, so he naturally needed some time to consolidate it. I really didn't think that a lowly commoner from a lowly city would cause third brother to lose his composure like this. It looks like I really should get rid of this future trouble. LV Yongsheng's eyes were filled with killing intent as he watched LV Yuanhua's departing figure. LV Yongsheng sat on a high seat in a dark hall, his eyes flickering endlessly. At this moment, a sturdy figure walked in with a majestic gait. This figure was over 9 feet tall and wore thick, pitch-black armor. Even his face was covered by a black steel mask. As he walked, ear-piercing clanging sounds could be heard. What was even stranger was that on the chest of this figure's black armor, there was a huge purple dragon. It looked exceptionally strange and cold. General Fei Long greets the second prince. What orders does the second prince have for me? General Fei Long knelt on one knee and said respectfully. However, although his voice was rough, there was a trace of coldness in it. It was as if he was a venomous snake that would attack at any time. LV Yongsheng glanced indifferently at General Fei Long and tossed a scroll to General Fei Long with his right hand. He said indifferently, "Slaughter all the cities marked on this map. Leave no one alive. However, you have to pay special attention to a young man named Zhuoan in Ratanama City. Capture him alive and hand him over to me." After receiving the scroll, General Fei Long suddenly opened it. Inside was a map of Muqin County. The names of the places were recorded in great detail. However, General Fei Long frowned slightly and said, "Second Prince, the cities marked on this map are all lowly cities. Could it be that you asked me to come here this time to slaughter these lowly cities?" Could it be that you are dissatisfied with my orders? LV Yongxing narrowed his eyes and stared at General Fei Long in front of him. A powerful aura slowly spread out from his body like a flood. General Fei Long couldn't help but tremble when he felt LV Yongxing's powerful aura. He hurriedly replied, "This subordinate dares not. This subordinate will definitely complete this task. As long as you can complete it. Remember, you must capture that young man named Zhuoan alive and hand him over to me. When the time comes and you complete the task, I will give you 1,000,000 emperor pills as your reward." General Fei Long was delighted when he heard this. Slaughtering a lowly city wasn't difficult for a half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator like him. However, the reward this time was 1,000,000 emperor pills. It was a profit for him. "All right, you may leave. I await your good news," LV Yongxing said indifferently with a wave of his hand. This subordinate will definitely not disappoint the second prince. General Fei Long bowed slightly and slowly left the hall, leaving LV Yongxing alone in his seat. His eyes flashed. "My lord, since you want to deal with Rattan Armor City, why do you want to slaughter all the lowly cities around it?" A faintly discernible shadow appeared in the darkness and asked. Many powers in the provincial capital know that Third Brother once stayed in Rattan Armor City. If we directly deal with Rattan Armor City, it will be easy for the other powers to think that the House of Marquis Qin is abusing its authority to avenge private wrongs. This will be detrimental to the ruling position of the House of Marquis Qin. However, if we slaughter a dozen lowly cities at once and casually accuse them of a crime, then no one will think that the House of Marquis Qin is abusing its authority to avenge private wrong. LV Yongxing said with a cold smile. Chapter 325. Refugees. Rattan Armor City was bustling as usual. The bustling flow of people was like a dragon as they entered and exited the city. It was a spectacular sight. Although it could not be compared to a super city like Broken Rock City, it was still a small sparrow that had everything it needed. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky and stopped several hundred kilometers away from Rattan Armor City, revealing a youth with a resolute expression. This youth was Zhuoan, who had rushed over from Broken Rock City. Gazing at the bustling city in the distance, Zhuoan revealed a nostalgic smile as he said, "I'm finally back. I never thought that I would actually stay in Broken Rock City for almost a year. I wonder how Rattan Armor City has changed." As he spoke, Zhuoan gently stepped off the ground and silently turned into a black shadow as he entered Rattan Armor City. With his current cultivation, it was too easy for him to hide his presence. Walking on the bustling streets of Rattan Armor City and looking at the familiar surroundings, Zhuoan wore a warm smile on his face. He could feel the warmth that Rattan Armor City gave him. This was a feeling that Rattan Armor City could not give him. Rattan Armor City had not changed much in a year. However, what surprised Zhuoan was that the population in the city seemed to have increased by a lot. Moreover, he could even see many beggars with tattered clothes and dirty faces on the streets. They held broken bowls in their hands as they begged the passers-by. "Big brother, can you give us some yuan coins? My mother and I have not eaten our fill for many days." Just as Zhuoan was slowly walking on the street, a petite figure suddenly pulled on his collar. Turning his head, he saw a little girl around 6 or 7 years old wearing old coarse clothes. She was looking at Zhuoan pitifully. Her skinny hand was holding a cracked porcelain bowl as she timidly handed it to Zhuoan. Her gaze was somewhat evasive. At the same time, Zhuoan also discovered that in an alley not far behind the little girl, a sallow and emaciated woman was weakly leaning against the wall. Her eyes were somewhat lifeless. Zhuoan also discovered many curled-up figures in the alley. Clearly, they were all in dire straits. What happened in Rattan Armor City? These people should be refugees. I've only left for less than a year. Why are there so many refugees in Rattan Armor City? Narrowing his eyes, the doubts in Zhuoan's heart became even more intense. Rubbing the little girl's head, Zhuoan took out 100 yuan coins and handed it to the little girl. "Big brother only has this much money on him. Take it." For a martial artist at Zhuoan's level, origin coins were of no use to him. Only precious pills like the Sovereign Essence pill could be used as hard currency between martial artists, while origin coins were only the currency used by ordinary people. Thank you, big brother. Gazing at the rattan armor city that Zhuoan had placed in the bowl, the little girl's eyes immediately lit up. She repeatedly nodded her thanks to Zhuoan before hurriedly tossing it to the woman in the alley. Looks like I have to hurry back to the Zhuo family. Perhaps grandfather and the others know why there are so many refugees in Rattan Armor City. Frowning slightly, Zhuoan took a step forward and disappeared from the street. In the large hall of the Zhuo family manor, Zhuo Xiangding, Jiu Tian, and some of the higher-ups of the Zhuo family and the city lord's manor were all gathered here. Ever since he found out that Zhuoan had the support of an ultimate emperor realm expert, Jiu Tian's attitude towards the Zhuo family had become even more cautious and careful. He knew that Zhuoan would definitely not be an ordinary person in the future, and with such a monstrous talent, the Zhuo family would definitely not be a simple faction in the future. Therefore, Jiu Tian had the foresight to build a good relationship with the Zhuo family. Usually, he would come to the Zhuo family to seek Zhuo Xiangding's opinion on many matters that required the city lord's manor to make a decision. The city lord's manor and the Zhuo family had even formed a marriage alliance a few times. It could be said that their relationship was quite close. In the beginning, Zhuo Xiangding was not used to Jiu Tian's behavior. After all, Jiu Tian's strength and status were much higher than his. However, he also knew that Jiu Tian's attitude was only because of Zhuoan. Every time he thought of Zhuoan's proud figure, Zhuo Xiangding's face was filled with pride. It could be said that Zhuoan had already become the pillar of support for the entire Zhuo family and even Rattan Armor City. In the hall, everyone's faces were filled with seriousness. For a moment, the entire hall seemed exceptionally quiet. Recently, there have been more and more refugees coming from the surrounding areas. Now, the entire Rattan Armor City has become somewhat chaotic. Does anyone have any good ideas on how to deal with these refugees? Jiu Tian's face was filled with seriousness as he scanned the surroundings and sighed. I heard that most of these refugees came from a low-grade city not far from our Rattan Armor City, Flowing Goblet City. 10 days ago, the city lord's manor of Flowing Goblet City was uprooted overnight. Regardless of whether it was the city lord or the servants, they were all slaughtered. Other than the city lord's manor, many of the stronger factions in Flowing Goblet City were also wiped out overnight. A grey-clothed man narrated with a serious expression. This grey-clothed man was a member of the city lord's manor who specialized in gathering information. He was very proficient in gathering information. It's not just Flowing Goblet City. The same thing happened in a low-grade city far to the south of us, Fenghua City. Because it's too far away from our Rattan Armor City, the refugees from there did not surge towards our Rattan Armor City. Moreover, low-grade cities like Fenghua City and Flowing Goblet City weren't the only ones that were massacred. It seems that there were more than a dozen cities that were massacred recently. Zhuo Xiangding also opened his mouth to speak. When the people in the hall heard this, they all revealed extremely grave expressions. They didn't think that such a strange thing would happen in such a short amount of time in a dozen low-level cities that weren't any weaker than their Rattan Armor City. This caused everyone's hearts to feel heavy. Will this kind of thing happen in our Rattan Armor City? Jiu Lai, who was originally silent, suddenly opened his mouth to speak. Those low-grade cities that were massacred were basically all near our Rattan Armor City. If the person or faction that did this is the culprit, it's very likely that they will attack our Rattan Armor City. Therefore, we must be prepared. Jiu Tian's expression was also extremely grave as he spoke calmly. Moreover, our Rattan Armor City still has the great defensive array that Grandmaster Karaki left behind. It shouldn't be that easy to break through. However, I'm also afraid that this mysterious faction might have Heavenly King Realm and Ultimate Emperor Realm experts. If there really is such an expert, I'm afraid that even the great defensive array won't be able to stop them. However, Zhuo Xiangding smiled bitterly and said, to be able to wipe out so many powerful factions in such a short period of time, there must be a Heavenly King Realm expert among them. There might even be a Ultimate Emperor Realm expert among them. The moment Zhuo Xiangding's words left his mouth, the hall instantly fell silent. They were also very clear that if it was only a Heavenly King Realm cultivator, they could still put up a fight. However, If it was a ultimate Emperor realm expert, then they would be powerless even if they wanted to. Just as the hall descended into silence, the door to the hall was suddenly opened by someone. An ear-piercing creaking sound slowly rang out in everyone's ears. What's going on? We are discussing important matters. Who allowed you to enter without permission? When he heard the creaking sound, Jiu Tian frowned slightly. He tilted his head to look at a figure outside the hall. However, when he saw the figure clearly, the words that he was about to say came to an abrupt end. Jiu Tian's strange behavior was immediately noticed by everyone. Therefore, everyone followed Jiu Tian's gaze and looked towards the entrance of the hall. When they saw a smiling young man standing in front of the door, everyone was stunned. Then, a trace of pleasant surprise appeared in their eyes. This was because the person who had appeared in front of the door was none other than Zhuowen, who had just returned. Haha. Zhuowen, you're finally back. I really didn't expect you to have stayed in Broken Rock City for an entire year. You've been gone for quite a long time. Zhuo Xiangding's eyes glowed brightly. Then, he laughed heartily as he walked towards Zhuowen and gave him a bear hug. His old face was filled with excitement. Zhuowen! Zhuowen! Everyone else in the hall also stood up and respectfully cupped their hands towards Zhuowen. Although the young man in front of them looked only 18 years old, his strength was indeed not to be underestimated. A year ago, when Zhuowen had left Ratanama City, his strength was already at the Earth King stage. Now that a year had passed, with Zhuowen's monstrous talent, he should have already advanced to the Heavenly King stage. Furthermore, Zhuowen had done many shocking things in Broken Rock City. The upper echelons of Ratanama City had also heard a little about him. It was said that even the city lord of Broken Rock City, Ouyang Yuntu, a second-wheel ultimate emperor stage expert, had to be courteous to the former. Everyone present was extremely respectful towards such a talented person. After exchanging some pleasantries with everyone, Zhuowen's expression became even more serious. Then, he asked, when I arrived at Ratanama City just now, I saw many refugees in the city. Could it be that something major has happened in Ratanama City recently? Everyone looked at each other. In the end, it was Jiu Tian who gave a rough description of the recent situation in the low-level cities near Ratanama City. More than 10 low-level cities were massacred in a single night. Who would do such a thing? After listening to Jiu Tian's description, Zhuowen couldn't help but be startled. Then, he frowned as he asked. We also don't know who the culprit is. However, what we can be sure of is that this mysterious faction definitely has the shadow of a half-step ultimate emperor stage expert. If it was just a Heavenly King stage cultivator, it would be impossible for them to massacre a dozen low-level cities so quickly. Furthermore, an ultimate emperor stage cultivator wouldn't lower himself to deal with a low-level city. Therefore, there must be a half-step ultimate emperor stage cultivator involved. Zhuo Xiangding also interjected at this moment. His expression was extremely serious. If it's a half-step ultimate emperor stage expert, I can still deal with him, Zhuowen said confidently. You can deal with him? Could it be that you've broken through to the ultimate emperor stage? Zhuo Xiangding couldn't help but exclaim when he heard this. Chapter 326. A secret mission. I haven't reached the half-step ultimate emperor realm, however, I do have something that can rival a half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Zhuowen shook his head. With a wave of his right hand, several black shadows flew out of Zhuowen's heaven-earth pouch. Upon closer inspection, these black shadows were puppets that glowed with colorful lights. Everyone could sense an extremely powerful aura from these puppets. This puppet formation is called the True Astral Baleful Earth Spirit. It's an advanced version of the Astral Baleful Earth Spirit. There are a total of 108 puppets. 36 of the Astral Baleful Earth Spirit puppets have the strength of a Heavenly King realm cultivator, while 72 of the Earthly Baleful Earth Spirit puppets have the strength of an Earth King realm cultivator. When combined, the strength of this puppet formation can rival an ordinary half-step Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, said Zhuowen. What? 36 puppets with the strength of a Heavenly King realm cultivator? And this formation can resist an ordinary half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. When these puppets were displayed in front of everyone, it caused an uproar. One had to know that the strongest person in Rattan Armor City, Gu Tian, was only an Earth King Realm Cultivator. However, 72 of these puppets were on par with Gu Tian, while the remaining 36 were far stronger than Gu Tian. After the initial shock, everyone's faces were filled with joy. With such a powerful puppet formation, Rattan Armor City would probably be able to avoid this calamity. Zhuowen, you've done us a great service this time, as expected of the #1 young cultivator of Rattan Armor City. His methods are truly powerful. Rattan Armor City doesn't have to fear that mysterious power anymore. For a moment, the entire hall became quite lively. The people in the hall discussed for a while more before they all dispersed happily. After all, they now had a true heavenly spirit earthly fiend that was comparable to a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. Many people in the hall felt a little more confident. Soon, the bustling hall became rather quiet. Only Zhuowen, Zhuo Xiangding, and Gu Tian were left in the hall. Lord Gu, you should know that I'm here to represent Tengjiao City in the Tower of Vitality. I wonder if you can tell me more about the battle for the Vitality Tower, Zhuowen said with a smile as he looked at Gu Tian. There are only 5 months left until the battle for the Vitality Tower, but we have to leave for the provincial capital 3 months in advance. That means we only have 2 months to prepare. Even if you didn't mention it, I would have told you about it. However, now is not the right time. Gu Tian nodded slightly and spoke cautiously. Not suitable? Why is that? Zhuowen was a little startled when he heard this. You're not the only one representing Tengjiao City this time. There's also Jiu Xin from the City Lord's Manor and Hu Wuying from the Huban sect. The two of them are still in closed-door cultivation. When we depart for the provincial capital in 2 months, I'll tell you in detail. Gu Tian smiled slightly. Zhuowen nodded slightly when he heard this. He didn't reject Gu Tian's suggestion. He also knew that the early stages of the battle for the Vitality Tower didn't depend on one's strength. They had to work together with the other cultivators in their city. After all, sometimes 2 fists couldn't beat 4 hands. Gu Tian chatted with Zhuo Wen and Zhuo Xiangding for a while more before he took the initiative to bid farewell and left the Zhuo residence. After Gu Tian left, only Zhuowen and Zhuo Xiangding were left in the hall. At this moment, Zhuowen was silently sizing up the old man in front of him. He could see that Zhuo Xiangding's strength had increased compared to before. This made Zhuowen somewhat surprised. As if sensing the surprise in Zhuowen's gaze, Zhuo Xiangding laughed and said, "My good grandson, are you surprised that my cultivation has increased? There's no need to be surprised. In the year that you left, Lord Jiyu took great care of our Zhuo family. He even gifted this old man with many precious elixirs. That's why my cultivation has increased so much compared to before." Zhuowen nodded slightly. He had expected that Gu Tian would treat the Zhuo family differently. Whether it was his talent, his relationship with Gu Tian, or his various deeds in Broken Rock City, as long as Gu Tian wasn't a fool, he would probably be on good terms with the Zhuo family. "Grandfather, these elixirs and spirit treasures were all purchased by me in Broken Rock City. Take them and place them in the family to equip some experts. If there's any extra, store them and use them as rewards for some talented juniors in the future." He patted his Chenkuan bag again. Immediately, stalks of elixirs and spirit treasures with strong spiritual energy scattered in the hall, forming a small mountain on the ground. Ever since he snatched the Chenkuan bags of Su Qi, Su Yang, and Zhu Yi, Zhuowen's wealth was not small. Although he had spent nearly 2 million Emperor Yuan pills to purchase the puppet materials and cultivate the jade stone body tempering technique, he still had hundreds of thousands of Emperor Yuan pills on him. Therefore, Zhuowen used the remaining Emperor Yuan pills to purchase a lot of elixirs and spirit treasures. Of course, most of them were 4th-grade elixirs and middle-grade spirit treasures. 5th-grade elixirs and high-grade spirit treasures were too expensive. Even if Zhuowen had hundreds of thousands of Emperor Yuan pills, it was not enough. Moreover, their family was still very weak, so 4th-grade elixirs and middle-grade spirit treasures were enough. 48 middle-grade spirit treasures and 100 fourth-grade elixirs? Heavens! Zhuowen, how did you get so many spirit treasures and elixirs? After seeing the small mountain of spirit treasures and elixirs in front of him, Zhuo Xiangding was dumbfounded. He could only stare blankly, almost speechless. One had to know that their Zhuo family only had one middle-grade spirit treasure, the gravity tower, and fourth-grade elixirs were so rare that they could be counted with one hand. However, Zhuowen had casually taken out 48 middle-grade spirit treasures and 100 fourth-grade elixirs. This really stunned Zhuo Xiangding. I won the arcane ceremony in Broken Rock City and received a lot of rewards. I bought these spirit treasures and elixirs from the Black Treasure Pavilion in Broken Rock City. You can take them and put them in the family. After all, the family can't develop without resources. Zhuowen smiled slightly. He did not mention the matter of snatching Su Yang and the others' Chenkuan bags. After all, this was a private matter and it was not good to talk about it. Good. Our Zhuo family has such an outstanding disciple like you. It seems that there is hope for the future. The old man's eyes were filled with excitement. His shoulders could not help but tremble as he laughed loudly. Looking at the excited old man in front of him, Zhuowen's heart was also filled with joy. The old man in front of him was his family. This was his home. He was willing to pay any price for him. On a mountain peak about 10,000 miles southeast of Ratanama City, a burly figure stood on the peak. He looked down at the city below the peak with eyes full of coldness. At this moment, the city was filled with flames. Everywhere was filled with slaughter and blood. Countless screams mixed together, as if roars from the 18th level of hell echoed around the mountain peak. Countless figures overlapped in the city, but under the cold butcher's knife, they all fell into pools of blood. At this moment, the city was already flowing with blood and corpses were strewn everywhere. It was like hell. Low-level cities really aren't challenging at all. Even the strongest city lord is only at the Earth King realm. There's no need for me to do anything. I really don't know why the second prince sent me on such a boring mission, the figure muttered to himself. There was a trace of coldness in his voice. This person was General Fei Long, who had been sent by LV Yongsheng. The city he had massacred this time was a low-level city called Shanghong City. The city lord's estate in Shanghong City was even weaker than Ratanama City. Obviously, they could not withstand General Fei Long's suppression. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Another 10 figures suddenly appeared on the mountain peak. They all wore black armor similar to General Fei Long's. There was also a dragon insignia on the chest of the armor, but it was slightly smaller than General Fei Long's. These 10 figures were the Flying Dragon Army under General Fei Long's command. They were all elites of the Flying Dragon Army. Every single one of them was around the peak of the Heavenly King realm. When the 10 of them worked together, they could even put up a fight against a half-step Ultimate Emperor realm expert. They could be considered as General Fei Long's capable subordinates. General, we've already massacred all the forces in Shanghong City, including the city lord's estate. Not a single one is left. What are we going to do next? Please give us your orders, General. One of the men half knelt on the ground and respectfully reported. Millimeter, you've done well. Next, we'll head directly to Ratanama City. According to the second prince's request, I've already massacred more than 10 low-level cities near Ratanama City. It's time to take care of Ratanama City as well. General Fei Long pondered for a moment, then waved his hand and loudly said, the 10 of you go directly to Ratanama City. Remember, you must capture a young man called Zhuowen alive. Don't leave anyone else alive. With the strength of the 10 of you, you should be able to wipe out Ratanama City. Then what about you, General? The man from before asked cautiously. The 10 of you are enough. When the time comes, I'll go there myself. All of you move quickly. Don't leave anyone alive and let them recognize us. Understand? General Fei Long said carelessly. Your subordinate understands. The 10 black-armored men shouted in unison. Then, they turned into 10 shadows and disappeared from the peak of the mountain. Back in Ratanama City, Zhuowen didn't know that he was being watched. After returning to the Zhuo family, He kept an extremely low profile and basically spent every day in seclusion. After all, there wasn't much time left until the battle for the Vitality Tower. Zhuowen seized every moment to cultivate, hoping to break through to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm as soon as possible. Then, his strength would rise to a whole new level. Time flew by, and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. However, Zhuowen was still in seclusion in a pavilion in the depths of the Zhuo estate. He'd already told Zhuo Xiangding that he wouldn't come out of seclusion until he broke through to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. Chapter 327. Attacking a city. Inside the City Lord's mansion, in a rather secretive pavilion, the originally tightly shut door suddenly opened, and a handsome man in fluttering white clothes walked out. The man had a faint smile on his face, and there was a sense of confidence in the depths of his somewhat deep eyes. After the battle for the quota, I began to go into seclusion. This seclusion lasted for nearly 2 years, and I did not disappoint everyone by breaking through to the Earth King stage. I wonder what realm Zhuowen is at now. During the battle for the quota, his realm was much lower than mine, but with his aptitude, he should be at least at the Heavenly King stage now. The white-clothed man was Jiyu Xin, who had gone into seclusion at that time. He was also Jiyu Tian's eldest son, and also the strongest person among the younger generation in Tengjiao City. However, Zhuowen's stunning performance in the battle for the quota completely overshadowed Jiyu Xin, so the position of the strongest person among the younger generation naturally became Zhuowen's. As he had been in seclusion all this time, Jiyu Xin did not know about the shocking actions Zhuowen had done in the ancient cave mansion and Broken Rock City. Now, he still thought that Zhuowen's realm was not much higher than his. Swoosh! A burly figure suddenly rushed out from the depths of the City Lord's mansion and appeared in front of Jiyu Xin. His eyes were fixed on Jiyu Xin, and after sensing the latter's unique aura of the Earth King stage, a trace of excitement immediately appeared in his eyes. "Greetings, Father." Jiyu Xin cupped his hands and said with a smile. Good. Xin, you really did not disappoint me. I did not expect you to break through to the Earth King stage. It seems that you have suffered a lot during your seclusion." The person who had come was Jiyu Tian. At this moment, his face was full of excitement and pride. This is all thanks to Father's nurturing of the city's resources. Otherwise, Xin would not have such powerful achievement. Jiyu Xin's face was also full of joy. Then, he changed the topic and said, "Father, I wonder how Zhuowen has been recently. What realm has he reached?" Back then, the limelight had been completely stolen by Zhuowen in the battle for the spots. Although he was convinced at that time, now that 2 years had passed, his progress could be described as lightning speed. He did not think that Zhuowen, whose cultivation level was lower than his back then, could surpass him. Zhuowen? Jiyu Tian was stunned. But when he saw Jiyu Xin's competitive expression, he knew what his son was thinking. He sighed and said with a complicated expression, "Xin, Zhuowen is currently attempting to break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm." Jiyu Xin originally had a confident smile on her face, but after hearing Jiyu Tian's words, the smile on her face suddenly froze. Her pupils shrank as she looked at Jiyu Tian in disbelief. She cried out involuntarily, "Father, what did you just say? Zhuowen was attempting to break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm? Has he already reached the Great Circle of the Heavenly King realm?" Jiyu Tian sighed and nodded. After learning of Zhuowen's glorious achievements in the past 2 years, Zhuowen's strength had long exceeded his expectations. The current Zhuowen was an existence that even he had to look up to. Seeing that Jiyu Xin still had a look of disbelief on her face, Jiyu Tian sighed inwardly. Then, he recounted everything related to Zhuowen that had happened in the past 2 years. Although he did not want to discourage his son, sometimes it was more important to recognize the truth than blind confidence. The more Jiyu Xin listened, the more surprised he became. When Jiyu Tian finished, he fell into a rare silence. Then, he took a deep breath and said with a complicated look in his eyes, "It seems that I was still a frog in the well. I really did not expect that Zhuowen had done so many shocking things in the past 2 years. However, I will not be dispirited because of this. I will catch up to him." At this point, Ji Yushin's face did not have a trace of frustration. Instead, there was a trace of determination. Good, good, good. Shin, I am relieved that you can think this way. With Zhuowen's talent, he will probably reach the ultimate emperor realm before the battle for the Origin Qi Tower. At that time, he will be the main force of our Rattan Armor City. With a genius like Zhuowen, our Rattan Armor City will probably be able to break into the top 1,000. At that time, our Rattan Armor City will successfully become a medium-grade city. So when the time comes, you have to get closer to Zhuowen. Ji Tian laughed, his face full of gratification. Actually, it was already very impressive that Ji Yushin could reach the Earth King realm in 2 years. However, he had met a monster like Zhuowen. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Ji Tian and Ji Yushin were conversing, 10 black figures flew over at an exaggerated speed several hundred kilometers away from Rattan Armor City. 10 auras surged out like mountains. What's going on? Ji Tian's expression changed. He raised his head to look at the sky and saw the 10 black figures flying over. Damn it! It's actually 10 peak Heavenly King Realm experts. Why would Heavenly King Realm experts suddenly appear? Could it be? As if he had thought of something, Ji Tian's expression turned extremely ugly. With a flash of his figure, he directly disappeared from the pavilion and arrived at the top of the tall city wall. With a grave expression on his face, he stared at the 10 figures that were charging towards him from outside the city. Big brother, those 10 people are very powerful. Could they be the culprits who recently massacred the other low-grade cities? Ji Lai was already on the city wall. When he saw Ji Tian arrive, he asked with an anxious expression. It's very likely. Second brother quickly opened the great city barrier array left behind by Grandmaster Kang Mu. We must not let those 10 people enter the city. Ji Tian's expression was also quite grave. Ji Lai nodded. His body flashed and rushed towards a formation on the southern side of the city wall. That formation was the core of the great city barrier array that Grandmaster Kang Mu had carved. As long as the corresponding yuan crystals were inserted, the great city barrier array would be activated instantly. Ji Yushin followed closely behind Ji Tian and arrived at the top of the city wall. She also noticed the 10 figures rushing over from afar. In particular, the 10 figures did not hide their auras at all. Therefore, Ji Yushin could feel the powerful aura emitted from the 10 figures. Father, who are they? Ji Yushin could not help but exclaim. The 10 figures all emitted the aura of the perfect Heavenly King stage. Mobilizing 10 perfect Heavenly King stage experts in one go was a little too much. These people should be the culprits who recently massacred the low-grade cities. Shin, our Rattan Armor City cannot avoid this battle. You must be prepared for battle. Ji Tian said in a low voice. Ji Tian had already told Ji Yushin about the massacre in the low-grade cities. Therefore, when she heard this, she was not too surprised. However, there was an additional grave expression on her face. Kai. The sound of something burning suddenly rang out. Then, the area within a few hundred miles of Rattan Armor City was enveloped by a layer of transparent barrier that emitted a brilliant light. When the Great City Barrier Array was activated, it immediately attracted the attention of many cultivators in the city. Among them, Zhuo Xiangding, who was cultivating in the Zhuo family, also noticed the abnormality in the city. His expression changed as he said, "They actually activated the Great City Barrier Array. Could it be that some powerful enemy is attacking? No, I have to go take a look." As he spoke, Zhuo Xiangding took a step forward and disappeared from the loft. In a short while, he appeared on the outer city wall of the city. Lord Ji, what exactly happened? They actually activated the Great City Barrier Array? As soon as Zhuo Xiangding arrived on the city wall, he discovered Ji Tian standing on the city wall and asked in surprise. There are 10 peak Heavenly King stage experts heading straight for our Rattan Armor City. I'm afraid that they have come with ill intentions. Moreover, I suspect that these 10 people are the culprits behind the recent massacre of the surrounding low-grade cities. Ji Tian said. 10 peak Heavenly King stage experts? Damn it, they actually have such a powerful lineup. However, Although the Great City Barrier Array's defensive power is very strong, I'm afraid that it will be very difficult for it to withstand an all-out attack from a peak Heavenly King stage expert. Zhuo Xiangding said with a frown. Where is Zhuo Wen? Could it be that he still hasn't come out of seclusion? The true limitless astral sword he took out last time is comparable to an ultimate Emperor stage expert. If the Great City Barrier Array can't withstand it, then use the puppet array. Although Jiu Tian's face was full of seriousness, he didn't panic in the slightest. After all, the true limitless astral sword formation that Zhuo Wen had handed over was really too powerful. Even if the 10-peak Heavenly King stage experts joined forces, it would be very difficult for them to defeat the puppet array. They might even be killed by the puppet array instead. Zhuo Xiangding nodded slightly and said, Zhuo Wen is still in seclusion, but I think he will be out soon. He told me that he would be in seclusion for 2 months at most. Now that it has been 2 months, I'm afraid that he will come out soon. However, with the true limitless astral sword in our hands, our Rattan Armor City is not afraid of the 10-peak Heavenly King stage experts. Zhuo Xiangding's face was full of confidence. He patted his Chenkuan bag with his right hand and numerous puppets surged out like a tide, appearing on the city wall. There were a total of 108 of them. What powerful puppets! There are actually 36 puppets that are comparable to the Heavenly King stage, while the other 72 are even above the Earth King stage. Were these puppets really taken out by Zhuo Wen? Jiu Xin was truly stunned as he looked at the terrifying auras of the puppets in front of him. Any one of these 108 puppets could completely destroy him. When he came back to his senses, Jiu Xin smiled bitterly and said softly, I really didn't expect Zhuo Wen to be so powerful. He can even take out such a powerful puppet array so easily. I'm afraid he has something even more powerful in his hands. He knew that since Zhuo Wen was able to hand over the puppet array so casually, it was obvious that this powerful array wasn't that precious to the former. He definitely had more powerful treasures in his hands, and there might even be more than one. When Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding heard this, they nodded in deep agreement. At this moment, Zhuo Wen had become mysterious and powerful in their eyes, as if there was a layer of mist lingering around his body. Boom. Chapter 328. Puppet Formation. The 10 figures were all dressed in black armor. On the chest area of their armor was a lifelike dragon. They were General Fei Long's 10 deputy generals of the Flying Dragon Army. Their strength was at the peak of the Heavenly King stage. These 10 people had their own code names in the Flying Dragon Army. However, General Fei Long usually used numbers to distinguish them. The man in black armor who reported to General Fei Long after the massacre of Shanghong City was Black One. He was the strongest and also the eldest brother of the 10. This Rattan Armor City is not simple. It actually has a great city barrier formation. It seems like there are arcana masters in this low-grade city. Black One also saw the transparent barrier around Rattan Armor City and said in surprise, It's only a grade 3 yuan array. Moreover, it's one of the weaker ones. Big brother, I can break it by myself. A tall and burly man in black armor laughed in a rough voice. Black One glanced at the burly man and nodded. Fifth brother, you are the strongest among the 10 of us. Go and break this great city barrier formation. However, you have to be careful. I can feel that this Rattan Armor City is not ordinary. When the burly man heard this, a trace of joy appeared on his face. He smiled and said, This Rattan Armor City is only a low-grade city. I'm afraid it doesn't even have a Heavenly King stage. Big brother, you're overthinking it. Next, you'll have to watch how I break this great city barrier formation. The burly man laughed. With a stomp of his foot, a powerful force caused cracks to appear on the ground. Then, his speed soared to the extreme and he arrived in front of the great city barrier formation in an instant. Heavenly Yuan shattering hammer. With a loud shout, the burly man clenched his right hand. The Yuan chi around him was sucked into his palm like a whirlpool. It turned into a giant golden hammer that was several feet long. Once the golden hammer was in his hand, the burly man violently swung it at the great city barrier formation in front of him. Rumble. A huge sound like a mountain collapsing suddenly rang out. Then, The transparent barrier on the surface of the defender formation started to shake violently. The powerful tremors almost spread through the entire Ratanama city, causing quite a commotion in Ratanama city. Catcher! A crisp sound slowly rang out. Then, cracks appeared on the surface of the protective array around Vinarma city. In the end, it collapsed inch by inch and turned into nothingness. Haha. Sure enough, it was just a lowly low-level city. The Great City Barrier Array was really too weak. Where was the Castellan of Ratanama city? Why aren't you coming out? After shattering the Great City Barrier Array, the rough man laughed wantonly, his face full of ridicule and mockery. On the city wall, Jiu Tian was not surprised at all when he saw that the city protection formation had been broken. After all, the man in front of him was a peak Heavenly King stage expert. Zhuo Xiangding kept the puppet array and exchanged glances with Jiu Tian. Then, both of them dashed forward and stopped in front of the boorish man. May I know why this senior has come to Ratanama city? We don't seem to have any grudges with you. Jiu Tian cupped his hands and said coldly. Seeing Jiu Tian's fearless look, the boorish man narrowed his eyes and said with a grin, a mere Earth King stage trash actually dares to act like this in front of me. It seems like you don't want to live anymore. Let me tell you clearly, I'm here today to massacre the city. You'll be the first to die. As he spoke, the boorish man waved his arm and directly charged towards Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding. Obviously, he wanted to kill them directly. The recent massacre of the surrounding low-level cities was indeed caused by you guys. It won't be that easy to kill us. Zhuo Xiangding's expression changed, a trace of anger appearing on his face. After all, he was also born in a low-level city. When he saw the other low-level cities being massacred like this, it was natural for him to feel a sense of sadness. Whoosh! Whoosh! Black shadows suddenly burst out from Zhuo Xiangding's Chenkuan bag and instantly surrounded the burly man who attacked. It was the true Heavenly Dipper Earthly Fiend puppet formation. However, Zhuo Xiangding was cautious and only summoned 12 Heavenly Dipper puppets. Bang! The boorish man's attack was completely blocked by the surrounding puppets as if it had entered a swamp. What's going on? These are all puppets. How could this be? There are actually so many puppets, and the auras of these 12 puppets are not weaker than the Heavenly King stage. Looking at the puppets around him, the smile on the boorish man's face finally froze, replaced by fear. He was indeed strong, at the peak of the Heavenly King stage, but there were a total of 12 Heavenly King stage puppets around him. Although these 12 puppets were slightly weaker than the boorish man, they still had the strength of the perfected Heavenly King stage. When the 12 of them joined forces, even if the boorish man was a peak Heavenly King stage warrior, he would not be a match for these 12 puppets. Kill him. Zhuo Xiangding's eyes were filled with killing intent as he ordered coldly. Boom. 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 After receiving the order, the 12 Heavenly Dipper puppets instantly moved, erupting with a power as powerful as a mountain and bombarding the boorish man's body. The fear on the boorish man's face became even more intense. He took out all the spirit treasures in his Chenkuan bag in a panic, hoping to block the combined attack of these puppets. However, these spirit treasures exploded into dust after coming into contact with the puppets' attacks. No. 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 How can I die here? I can't accept this. The boorish man finally let out an extremely unwilling roar. The attacks of the 12 Heavenly Dipper puppets all landed on the boorish man's body, directly blasting him into pieces. What? Old Five is dead. How is that possible? What are those that surrounded Old Five? Old Five couldn't even hold on for 15 minutes before exploding and dying. Those seem to be puppets. Oh my god, there are actually 12 of them, and all 12 of them have the strength of the complete Heavenly King stage. Hei Yi and the others, who were originally behind the boorish man, also saw the scene just now. Especially after hearing the boorish man's unwilling roar, they were all shocked and their faces were filled with disbelief. Big brother, what should we do now? This Ratanama city is really strange. They actually have such precious puppets, and there are even 12 of them. I'm afraid we won't be able to gain any advantage against them. Hei Yi and the others all stopped. They were dozens of miles away from Rattan Armor City. They looked at each other and at the 12 puppets in the distance, their faces filled with fear. At this moment, Hei Yi's face was extremely gloomy. He coldly stared at the remaining 8 people, who were somewhat afraid, and sneered, "Do you dare to retreat? The general has given a death order. If we don't get rid of this Rattan Armor City, you know the consequences." When the other 8 heard this, they couldn't help but shiver. General Fei Long was famous for being cold and cruel. If they didn't complete the mission this time, they would definitely suffer a fate worse than death. Those 12 puppets are only at the complete Heavenly King stage, but the 9 of us are at the peak of the Heavenly King stage. Although we have fewer people than the puppets, if we join forces, we should be able to destroy those 12 puppets. As long as those puppets are destroyed, Rattan Armor City will have nothing to rely on. At that time, it will be like a soft persimmon that we can crush at will. Hei Yi was extremely calm at this moment. He looked at the 8 people around him and silently analyzed the pros and cons of the current situation. After Hei Yi's explanation, the 8 people who were originally a little flustered immediately regained their composure. Big Brother is right. As long as we join forces, we will definitely be able to destroy those 12 puppet. If we retreat this time, I'm afraid the general won't let us off. We definitely can't retreat. The 9 people immediately reached an agreement. Then, they looked at the 12 puppets not far away with murderous intent. The killing intent in their eyes surged. Kill. Destroy Rattan Armor City. At Hei Yi's command, the 9 people immediately rushed towards the 12 puppets blocking in front of Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding in a strange formation. They knew that if they didn't destroy these 12 puppets, they wouldn't be able to do anything to Rattan Armor City. Boom. 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 In an instant, Hei Yi and the other 8 people collided with the 12 puppets. The shockwaves created by the collision spread out in all directions in a ring shape. Even the space seemed to be distorted because of it. Hei Yi and the other 8 people used their strongest soul treasures and moves. Their perfect and tacit cooperation actually put the 12 puppets at a disadvantage in an instant. They even pressed on step by step, wanting to destroy all 12 puppets in one fell swoop. So what if you have 12 puppets? Your Rattan Armor City won't be able to escape the fate of being slaughtered. Once we destroy these 12 puppets, it will be the death of the 2 of you and Rattan Armor City. Hei Yi's eyes lit up as he pushed the puppets back again and again. He looked at Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding, who were watching from the side, and sneered. However, what surprised them was that Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding didn't have the slightest trace of worry on their faces. Instead, they were strangely calm. Are these 2 guys scared out of their wits? Their puppets are clearly at a disadvantage, but they don't seem to be worried at all. One of Hei Yi's subordinates muttered to himself in confusion. "I'm sorry. This should be our line. Today is the day the 9 of you die. True Big Dipper earthly fiend, come out." A strange smile appeared on Zhuo Xiangding's face. Then, he patted his Chenkuan bag and summoned the remaining puppets. They gathered together with the 12 Big Dipper earthly fiend puppets and formed a Big Dipper earthly fiend puppet formation. Oh my god, there are still puppets. And there are a total of 36 Heavenly King puppets and 72 Earthly King puppets. How can a small Rattan Armor City have so many powerful puppets? I'm afraid that even an ordinary middle-grade city wouldn't be able to produce so many puppets, right? Chapter 329. General Fei Long makes a move. At this moment, Zhuo Xiangding's face was filled with indifference. He formed a seal with his hands and shouted, "True Heavenly Dipper Earth Terminus Formation, form. Destroy everything." Boom. Boom. The 108 puppets worked together in perfect coordination. Their mountain-shattering attacks were like meteorites that filled the sky as they continuously bombarded Black One and the other 8 people in the encirclement. It was as if countless bombs had exploded at the same time. Invisible ripples surged out from within the puppet formation. As these ripples spread out, they even caused the space to distort. Even though Hei Yi and the others were in the middle of the puppet formation, they could only barely withstand the attacks of the puppet formation. They were like a small boat in a storm that could capsize at any time. What a powerful puppet formation. Those 9 people are all peak Heavenly King stage experts. When the 9 of them work together, they can even put up a fight against an ultimate Emperor stage expert. However, under the Heavenly Dipper Earth Terminus formation, they are actually in such a sorry state. Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding were somewhat surprised as they looked at the puppet formation that could distort space. It seemed like the might of the Heavenly Dipper Earth Terminus formation was above their expectations. They really didn't know how Zhuoan had obtained such a powerful puppet formation. Haha. Lord Jiu, look. The 9 of them can't hold on any longer. Zhuo Xiangding suddenly laughed and said in a carefree manner. Jiu Tian also turned his gaze to the puppet formation when he heard this. Under the combined attacks of the 108 Heavenly Dipper Earth Terminus puppets, the defensive circle formed by Hei Yi and the others was blasted apart. The 9 of them were all killed by the other puppets. Ah, I can't accept this. How can a small low-level city have such a powerful puppet formation? We've really lost this time. We've destroyed more than 10 low-level cities, but now we've been destroyed by a low-level city. Boom. Boom. The 108 puppets continuously unleashed 108 powerful attacks. The powerful yuan power fluctuations almost caused the surrounding air to boil. Among the 9 people, other than Black One, who was the strongest, the other 8 people were all smashed into pieces by this powerful attack. Countless blood foam flew everywhere. Poochie. Although he managed to block the puppet erase attack, Black One spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body fell to the ground like a falling leaf. Do you know who I am? I'm the first Deputy General of the House of Marquis Qin's General Fei Chang. Stop. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Black One's aura was extremely weak. When he saw that the surrounding puppets were about to attack again, his face suddenly revealed a look of horror. He hurriedly shouted out his identity. From the House of Marquis Qin? When Zhuo Xiangding and Jiu Tian heard this, they were instantly shocked. They immediately stopped the puppet array that was about to attack. Why do you want to destroy our Rattan Armor city? We're only an insignificant low-level city. The 2 of them also became quite serious. If this matter involved a super force like the House of Marquis Qin, they had to be careful. After all, the House of Marquis Qin was the most powerful force in Muqin County. Crushing Rattan Armor city was like crushing an ant. We're just following orders. The person in charge of this mission is our superior, General Fei Chang. He's a general under the 2nd Prince of the House of Marquis Qin, Lu Yongsheng. This time, he's following orders to destroy your Rattan Armor city. It seems like he's looking for a young man named Zhuoan. Black One laughed bitterly. Now that his life was in the hands of others, he really didn't dare to lie. It's actually the 2nd Prince of the House of Marquis Qin. Could it be related to the incident in the Primordial Cave Mansion? I remember that when we were in the Primordial Cave Mansion, the 3rd Prince, Lu Yuanhua, had a conflict with Zhuoan. This Lu Yuanhua is the 3rd brother of that Lu Yuanhua. It seems like it's because of that Lu Yuanhua. Jiu Tian frowned. Then what should we do? This time, they're clearly coming with great force. I'm afraid they won't let Zhuoan go so easily. Moreover, the battle for the Vitality Tower is coming soon. Zhuoan must go to the provincial capital. Wouldn't that be like a lamb walking into a tiger's den? Zhuo Xiangding said with an ugly expression. Although the House of Marquis Qin is the most powerful force in the provincial capital, fighting is prohibited in the provincial capital. Even the people of the House of Marquis Qin don't dare violate this rule. Therefore, the provincial capital is very safe. However, there aren't so many restrictions in the Vitality Tower. When the time comes, if Lu Yuanhua wants to make a move, he'll probably do it in the Vitality Tower. Jiu Tian shook his head. His expression also became somewhat gloomy. He knew that if Lu Yuanhua really targeted Zhuoan, it would be very difficult for Rattan Armor City to achieve anything in this battle for the Vitality Tower. This matter should be decided by Zhuoan himself. But how should we deal with this guy? Zhuo Xiangding shook his head and then looked coldly at the weak Black One in front of him. Since Lu Yuanhua has shed all pretense of cordiality with us, We don't need to worry too much. Jiu Tian's eyes surged with killing intent. He took out a long sword from his heaven-earth pouch and fiercely stabbed forward. The long sword directly pierced Black One's heart. You! Black One stared in disbelief at Jiu Tian's cold expression. His eyes were filled with hatred. Even if I die, your rattan armor city won't be able to escape. The general will quickly find out that the 10 of us have died. When the time comes, he'll rush over and kill everyone in Rattan Armor City. After saying this, Black One fell to the ground with resentment and unwillingness. Then, he breathed his last. From what this guy said, they seem to have a general. I'm afraid that general's strength is at least at the ultimate emperor realm. We need to be prepared. After killing Black One, Jiu Tian said with a serious expression. If it's an ultimate emperor realm expert, then the Earthshaw's Tiangang formation should be enough to stop him. But if it's an ultimate emperor realm expert, then I'm afraid our Rattan Armor City will really suffer. Zhuo Xiangding nodded and smiled bitterly. The moment Jiu Tian killed Black One, in a dense forest thousands of miles away from Rattan Armor City, a tall man in black armor slowly walked through the dense forest. Achem! Suddenly, the man in black armor stopped and revealed a cold expression. It was General Fei Long. At this moment, General Fei Long's brows were slightly furrowed. He took out a bright jade tablet from his heaven-earth pouch. However, the surface of the jade tablet was covered in cracks. Black One's life tablet is broken. Does that mean Black One is dead? Could it be that he died in Rattan Armor City? Looking at the broken jade tablet in his hand, General Fei Long narrowed his eyes. His eyes were filled with dense coldness as he said coldly, since Black One is dead, then the other 9 won't be able to survive either. It looks like this Rattan Armor City is somewhat special. They were actually able to kill my 10 lieutenants. I'd like to meet this Rattan Armor City myself. With that, General Fei Long took a step forward and disappeared from where he stood. In the span of a few breaths, General Fei Long had flown thousands of miles away. Soon, he saw the silhouette of Rattan Armor City in the distance. As his name suggested, General Fei Long was extremely skilled in speed. His speed was as fast as a flying dragon. It could be said that many half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators couldn't compare to him. This was also why General Fei Long was able to escape from an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator when he was only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. It was because his speed was already comparable to an ordinary Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. At this moment, outside of Rattan Armor City, Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding were instructing some soldiers to clean up the corpses of Black One and his lieutenants. At the same time, they were secretly on guard. They knew that the second prince hadn't only sent the 10 heavenly kings. He had also sent a very powerful general. However, they didn't know just how powerful that general was. I really didn't think that there would be someone in your little Rattan Armor City who could kill my 10 lieutenants. This is rather puzzling, isn't it? Just as Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding were instructing their subordinates to clean up the corpses, a cold voice suddenly rang out. The 2 of them immediately turned around in fright. They saw a burly man in black armor standing about 10 meters behind them. He was looking at Jiu Tian and Zhuo Xiangding with a cold smile on his face. Who are you? Jiu Tian's eyes bulged as a trace of cold sweat slowly dripped down his forehead. He hadn't even noticed this person had appeared behind them just now. Whoosh! General Fei Long took a step forward and his entire body turned into a bolt of black lightning. He instantly appeared in front of Jiu Tian and his lightning-fast fist violently slammed into Jiu Tian's chest. Bang! Jiu Tian's pupils shrank as a heart-wrenching pain immediately surged into his heart. Following that, he spat out a large mouthful of blood and flew backwards like a withered leaf. In the end, he crashed heavily onto the ground a dozen meters away and spat out another mouthful of blood. Father! Big brother! Jiu Xin and Jiu Lai's expressions changed drastically when they saw that Jiu Tian had been defeated by General Fei Long in a single move. They both landed beside Jiu Tian and stared furiously at General Fei Long. You killed my lieutenants and you're asking me who I am? However, since you're so weak, it shouldn't be you who did it. Could it be you? General Fei Long tilted his head and ignored the furious Jiyu Xin and Jiyu Lai. His cold gaze suddenly locked onto Zhuo Xiangding, who was standing nearby in a daze. However, when he sensed the Heavenly King stage aura from Zhuo Xiangding, he couldn't help but frown as he said, "It's just a Heavenly King stage trash. It shouldn't be you either. However, since you dared to touch my lieutenant's corpse, you'll still die." As he spoke, General Fei Long took another step forward and charged towards Zhuo Xiangding with lightning-like speed. In just an instant, General Fei Long arrived within 10 feet of Zhuo Xiangding. He then smiled coldly and threw a punch at the latter's head. The powerful force almost caused the surrounding air to explode. The power of this punch was enough to blow apart Zhuo Xiangding's head. Bang! However, what made General Fei Long's pupils shrink was that his punch was actually blocked. Puppets immediately rushed out from Zhuo Xiangding's Chenkuan bag and surrounded General Fei Long. The one who blocked General Fei Long's punch was a celestial dipper puppet. Puppets. Moreover, it's a formation formed by 108 puppets. 36 of them are at the Heavenly King stage and 72 are at the Earth King stage. No wonder my 10 lieutenants have all fallen, so it's all because of these puppets. However, it won't be that easy to stop me. General Fei Long sneered as he looked at the puppet formation around him. A tyrannical aura suddenly surged out from his body. Chapter 330. Dragon Transformation Boom. 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 Boundless astral winds surged out from General Fei Long's body as he threw out several hundred punches in an instant, forcing the nearby puppets to retreat several dozen steps. General Fei Long is so powerful. Even the Heavenly Spirit's earthly fiend puppet formation has been forced to retreat. Zhuo Xiangding's pupils shrank as he involuntarily exclaimed. He could faintly sense that General Fei Long was actually much more powerful than an ordinary half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Although this fellow's strength is a little strange, the Heavenly Spirit's earthly fiend formation is not limited to this. Although he was surprised by General Fei Long's strength, Zhuo Xiangding was rather confident in the Heavenly Spirit's earthly fiend formation. When Zhuoan had given it to him back then, he had imparted to him the various uses of the formation, including an ultimate technique. According to Zhuoan, even a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert would find it difficult to resist this ultimate technique. When he thought of this, Zhuo Xiangding's hand seals suddenly changed. His hands moved like lightning as they formed various hand seals. At the same time, the numerous puppets that had been forced back by General Fei Long suddenly released a rather powerful aura. Their originally dull eyes also emitted a somewhat sinister green light. Heavenly Spirit's earthly fiend, dragon transformation. With a low shout, Zhuo Xiangding suddenly slapped his Chenkuan bag. Emperor Yuan pills poured out like a tide. At a glance, there were actually over 10,000 of them. The mighty Emperor Yuan pills transformed into dense golden Emperor Yuan chi that poured into the bodies of all the puppets. The dragon transformation was the ultimate form of the Heavenly Spirit's earthly fiend formation. In order to successfully execute this move, one needed 10,000 Emperor Yuan pills. Just a single move required 10,000 Emperor Yuan pills. From this, one could see just how great the price of this move was. The Emperor Yuan pills in Zhuo Xiangding's Chenkuan bag were given to him by Zhuoan. It was also for the former to use the ultimate form of the Heavenly Spirit's earthly fiend formation to escape when he encountered danger. Roar. An earth-shattering dragon's roar suddenly rang out. Following which, the 108 puppets wrapped in Emperor Yuan Chi disintegrated one after another, turning into irregular palm-sized cubes. Under the Emperor Yuan Chi, these cubes rapidly reassembled like flesh and blood. In the blink of an eye, they had transformed into a giant golden dragon that was several dozen meters long. The golden dragon looked down at General Fei Long with its cold, dark golden eyes. A mere Heavenly King stage Heavenly King has 10,000 Emperor Yuan pills. General Fei Long's eyes narrowed when he saw Zhuo Xiangding's actions. A trace of greed flashed through the depths of his eyes. The value of Emperor Yuan pills was extremely high. Even he, a high-ranking general in the house of Marquis Qin, only received several tens of thousands of Emperor Yuan pills a year. However, This ant-like Zhuoxiangding had actually taken out 10,000 Emperor Yuan pills in one go. General Fei Long's mind couldn't help but become active. He knew that Zhuoxiangding probably still had a lot of Emperor Yuan pills in his Chenkuan bag, a puppet formation that's comparable to an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, as well as a considerable amount of Emperor Yuan pills. Haha. I'll gladly accept these items. General Fei Long didn't take the formation of heavenly spirits and earthly demons seriously. The golden dragon in front of him was only comparable to an ordinary ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. It might be more than enough to tie down an ordinary ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, but General Fei Long was a powerful existence who had once escaped from a true ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. He could be considered the strongest cultivator below the ultimate Emperor realm. He could probably even kill an ordinary ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. This was the main reason why he didn't take the golden dragon seriously. It won't be that easy for you to take my Chenkuan bag. Zhuoxiangding snorted coldly. With a thought, he directed the golden dragon in the sky towards General Fei Long's strong winds cut through the surrounding air like sharp blades. Hee. I, General Fei Long, have never failed to get what I want. Do you think this golden dragon can stop me? General Fei Long grinned. He took out a huge saber with a long handle from his Chenkuan bag. It was more than 3 meters long, and it constantly emitted throbbing waves of energy. My name is General Fei Long. This saber is my treasured saber. It's called the Dragonslayer saber, a high-grade top-grade spirit treasure. No matter if it's a powerful cultivator or a giant dragon, they'll all drink blood from this saber. Today, you won't be an exception. Stomp. General Fei Long stomped his foot on the ground. He did not even try to dodge the incoming golden dragon. His right hand, which was holding the hilt of his blade, suddenly swung. The blade light drew a strange arc in the air like a crescent moon. In an instant, it viciously smashed into the golden dragon's lower jaw. Boom. Boom. Muffled booms that sounded like countless explosions suddenly spread out. Then, the giant golden dragon, which was hundreds of meters in size, was actually forced back a dozen steps by General Fei Long's ordinary slash. General Fei Long, on the other hand, did not move at all. How is this possible? General Fei Long is actually so powerful. Even the formation of heavenly spirits and earthly fiends in its final form is at a disadvantage. Zhuoxiangding's pupils shrank to the size of needles as he watched the giant golden dragon retreat. He couldn't help but cry out in surprise. His face was already filled with shock. Even Jiyu Xin and Jiyu Lai, who were supporting the heavily injured Jiyu Yutian, stared at the scene before them in disbelief. They could sense the powerful aura radiating from the giant golden dragon. It was definitely comparable to a half-step ultimate Emperor realm expert. However, this giant golden dragon, which wasn't any weaker than an ordinary half-step ultimate Emperor realm expert, had actually been completely suppressed by General Fei Long in their first clash. General Fei Long isn't an ordinary half-step ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. He's actually this powerful. This is simply unbelievable. Jiyu Yutian said with a grave expression as he clutched his chest and coughed up blood. This puppet really is extraordinary. My Dragonslayer saber didn't even leave a mark on its body. I'm definitely taking this puppet. The greed in General Fei Long's eyes grew even more intense as he watched the giant golden dragon retreat. He could sense that the puppet before him wasn't ordinary at all. If he could take it for his own use, his strength would probably rise to a whole new level. So what if its skin is tough? This puppet requires energy to use. As long as I exhaust all the energy within its body, it'll naturally be unable to move. At that time, I'll be able to forcefully store it into my Chenkuan pouch. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, General Fei Long stomped his foot and raised his saber once more. He clashed with the giant golden dragon once more. The giant golden dragon wasn't willing to be outdone. It roared furiously and charged at General Fei Long. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, the two of them violently collided. They had exchanged dozens of blows in an instant, and the battle had reached a climax. The shockwaves from the battle rippled outwards, causing even space itself to distort. However, to Zhuoxiangding's horror, The giant golden dragon was at an absolute disadvantage. Every time they exchanged blows, the giant golden dragon would be blasted to the ground by General Fei Long's tyrannical strength. Fortunately, the giant golden dragon was a puppet. Its body was so tough that even General Fei Long couldn't easily penetrate it. Although the giant golden dragon's skin was tough, just as General Fei Long had guessed, it required energy to control the giant golden dragon in battle. The source of this energy came from the 10,000 Emperor energy pills that Shuo Xiangding had just scattered. Once the Emperor energy within the giant golden dragon's body was completely exhausted, the giant golden dragon would become as motionless as a piece of scrap metal. General Fei Long is really too strong. Even the giant golden dragon isn't his match. We can only run now. Otherwise, once he completely defeats the giant golden dragon, none of us will survive. The more Shuo Xiangding watched, the more shocked he became. General Fei Long was really too abnormal. This guy's strength had completely surpassed the limits of an ordinary half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. He was probably extremely close to the Ultimate Emperor Realm. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Shuo Xiangding resolutely abandoned the giant golden dragon. His speed soared to the limit as he arrived beside Jiu Yutian and the others. He shouted, "Run! This General Fei Long isn't someone we can deal with. Run! Where can we run to now? This General Fei Long has already fought his way to the gates of our Rattan Armor City. Are we supposed to ignore the lives of everyone in Rattan Armor City and escape by ourselves?" Jiu Yutian's face was filled with bitterness. After discovering that even the heavenly spirits and earthly fiends provided by Zhuoan weren't General Fei Long's match, he knew that Rattan Armor City was truly finished. Everyone, go to the Zhuo Manor. Zhuoan has set up a defensive origin array outside. As long as we hide in the Zhuo Manor, no matter how powerful this General Fei Long is, he won't be able to break through. Shuo Xiangding's voice carried a trace of urgency. A defensive origin array? A glint immediately surged within Jiu Yutian's eyes when he heard this. However, it quickly dimmed as he bitterly laughed. It's useless. Even the great defensive formation that Grandmaster Kang Mu has set up is unable to block General Fei Long. Don't tell me that the defensive Yuan formation that Zhuoan has set up will be able to block him. Zhuoan is now a Grade 3 Arcana Master, and his spirit has also reached the perfection of the Grade 3 Arcana Master. He's only a step away from becoming a Grade 4 Arcana Master. He's much stronger than Grandmaster Karaki back then. The defensive origin array he set up is at the peak of Grade 3 Arcana Masters. It can even withstand General Fei Long's attacks. Seeing that Jiu Yutian and the others were somewhat disheartened, Shuo Xiangding no longer bothered to hide the fact that Zhuoan was a Grade 3 Perfect Arcana Master. After all, Zhuoan was his grandson, and he didn't hide much from Shuo Xiangding. This was why Shuo Xiangding knew that Zhuoan's spirit had reached such a high level. What? Brother Zhuo, what did you say? You're saying that Zhuoan is actually a Grade 3 Perfect Arcana Master? The atmosphere between the three of them immediately became strangely silent. Jiu Yutian, Jiu Lai, and Jiu Xin all stared blankly at Shuo Xiangding. Disbelief filled their faces. They suspected that there was something wrong with their ears. They remembered that Zhuoan had only started learning spirit techniques 3 or 4 years ago. Wasn't it a little too terrifying for him to become a Grade 3 Perfect Arcana Master in such a short amount of time? Chapter 331. Dragon Rebel / After learning that Zhuoan was actually a perfect 3rd grade Arcana Master, Jiu Yutian and the other two's eyes lit up again. They knew that they were saved this time. Let's go to the Zhuo Manor. With that, Jiu Yutian and the other two followed Shuo Xiangding into the city. They couldn't stay here for long. Once General Fei Long completely defeated the giant golden dragon, they would really be in trouble. They were as weak as ants in front of a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. You want to leave? It's not that easy. Die, all of you. General Fei Long, who was fighting fiercely with the giant golden dragon, also noticed that Shuo Xiangding and the other three were preparing to escape. He coldly snorted and reached out with his right hand, intending to use Yuan energy to stop Shuo Xiangding and the other three. Awoo! However, The giant golden dragon had already received Zhuo Xiangding's order. It fiercely pounced towards General Fei Long, its large mouth viciously biting at General Fei Long's outstretched arm. Oh, damn it. Then let's deal with this puppet first. We'll deal with those ants later. In the face of the giant golden dragon's attack, General Fei Long could only slowly retract his outstretched right arm. With a sidestep, he dodged the dragon's bite. Then, he swung his large blade and directly chopped at the dragon's neck. Clang, clang, clang. Countless sparks burst out, but the surface of the giant dragon remained unscathed. However, the tremendous force caused the giant golden dragon to plummet downwards. With a loud rumble, the giant dragon's huge body smashed a huge crater into the ground. Looking down at the undying giant golden dragon, the desire in General Fei Long's eyes grew even more intense. He must obtain such a sturdy puppet. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. While General Fei Long was fighting fiercely with the giant golden dragon, Zhuo Xiangding, Jiyu Tian and the other two had already entered Ratanama City. At this moment, Jiyu Tian's expression was rather calm as he said, "Second brother, quickly go to the city lord's mansion and gather some of the outstanding disciples and enter the Zhuo Manor together. Also, evacuate the others. Run as far as you can." "Big brother, I understand." Jiyu Lai nodded his head and immediately disappeared from where he was, heading towards the city lord's mansion to gather the disciples. After all, the outstanding disciples were the foundation of the city lord's mansion. Xin go and evacuate the commoners in the city. Tell them to leave Ratanama City as soon as possible. This old man is afraid that General Fei Long won't even let the commoners off. Jiyu Tian instructed Jiyu Xin. Jiyu Xin nodded her head and rushed towards the crowded areas in the city without hesitation. After all, even the commoners had seen the battle just now. In fact, without Jiyu Xin's instructions, the commoners had already formed groups and ran out of the city. He could feel the powerful aura emitted by this defensive elemental formation. This aura far surpassed the original defensive elemental formation of Ratanama City. Boom! Outside the city, General Fei Long clenched his right hand and once again struck the body of the giant golden dragon, slamming it into the ground from the sky. Roar! The giant golden dragon let out a sorrowful cry and instantly disintegrated into 108 heavenly spirits and earthly fiends puppets. However, these puppets had dull eyes and were motionless. It was obvious that the energy in their bodies had been exhausted. Haha! I've finally exhausted all of this big guy's energy. General Fei Long gently wiped away the sweat on his forehead and sighed. The giant golden dragon formed by the puppets was just too durable. No matter how hard he struck, he could not break its body that was as hard as steel. Only an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator could completely destroy this puppet. Although I spent a lot of effort, it was worth it to be able to obtain such a powerful puppet. With a wave of his right hand, General Fei Long collected the puppets that had exhausted their energy. He knew that as long as he refined them again and provided a certain amount of Emperor energy pills, these puppets would be able to function again. Moreover, they would all listen to his orders. Next, I should take care of Ratanama City, especially that young man called Zhuoan. I must find him. After completing this mission, the second prince will probably reward me handsomely with resources. After taking care of the heavenly spirits and earthly fiends puppets, General Fei Long looked at Ratanama City in front of him. A cruel smile appeared on his face as he entered the city in a flash. The streets inside were empty. Many commoners had long since fled the city. However, General Fei Long's target was not the commoners, but the governor's mansion and Zhuoan of the Zhuo mansion. Hey! The governor's mansion is empty. General Fei Long frowned as he searched the sky above the city lord's mansion, only to discover that there was not a single person in the huge city lord's mansion. He then turned his gaze towards the direction of the Zhuo mansion. There are so many cultivators. Looks like many people are hiding in the Zhuo mansion. When he looked over, General Fei Long also noticed the defensive Yuan formation above the Zhuo mansion. His eyes narrowed. There's actually a defensive Yuan formation? But so what if there's a defensive Yuan formation? I'll break it all the same. With a cold snort, General Fei Long took a step into the air and arrived above the Zhuo mansion in an instant. He held a long saber in his hand as he stared coldly at everyone in the Zhuo mansion. He's here. General Fei Long is here. Heavens! This guy actually took care of the heavenly spirits and earthly fiends' puppets so quickly. How powerful! This guy is definitely much stronger than the average ultimate half-step Emperor realm cultivator. Everyone, who was hiding within the defensive Yuan formation, lifted their heads to look at General Fei Long, who was standing in the sky. Their eyes revealed a trace of fear. After all, the commotion caused by the battle between General Fei Long and the Heavenly Dipper Earth Demon puppet was extremely huge. Everyone had clearly witnessed it. Hence, they clearly understood just how frightening General Fei Long was. Today, all of you will die. Break. Reverse Dragon Slash. With a cold snort, General Fei Long lifted his saber and slashed at the air. Yuan power poured out from his palm like a tidal wave and poured into the saber. In an instant, a gigantic saber shadow that was several hundred feet long appeared above the 3 feet long saber. A huge flying dragon coiled around the saber shadow and constantly roared downwards. The surrounding space even began to distort and collapse. What a powerful attack! Can this defensive Yuan formation withstand it? Everyone's hearts trembled as they looked at General Fei Long's terrifying saber shadow. They finally felt that General Fei Long was a little too terrifying. Even Zhuo Xiangding and Jiyu Yutian were extremely nervous. After all, General Fei Long had given them a feeling that he was a little too powerful. The defensive Yuan formation in front of them was indeed powerful, but the two of them had no idea if it could withstand General Fei Long's attack. Rumble. The powerful saber shadow was like a shooting star that streaked across the starry sky. It violently traversed through the air and violently slammed into the defensive Yuan formation. In an instant, countless black holes appeared at the intersection of the saber shadow and the energy barrier. The space in that area actually collapsed at this moment. A violent explosion suddenly rang out. Following which, the entire Zhuo mansion trembled. The ground shook and the mountains swayed. All the fighters who were hiding inside revealed looks of panic on their faces. After the violent tremors subsided, everyone realized that although the defensive Yuan formation in the sky had dimmed a little, it did not break at all. He blocked it. He actually blocked it. Haha. As expected of the defensive Yuan formation set up by Zhuoan. It can actually block such a powerful attack. At this moment, everyone in the Zhuo mansion cheered. They knew that since General Fei Long could not break the defensive Yuan formation, it meant that they were now very safe. Hee. You've underestimated my reverse dragon slash. My strongest move is not the saber shadow. In the sky, General Fei Long's face instantly revealed a mocking sneer. Then, he continued, the strongest move is the dragon shadow that is above the saber shadow. After he finished speaking, a dragon's roar shook the heavens and earth. The dragon shadow above the saber shadow violently slammed into the defensive Yuan formation. The powerful destructive force exploded into a 5-colored brilliance in mid-air. Crack. Chapter 332. Zhuoan exits seclusion. Everyone in the Zhuo mansion stared at the defensive Yuan array in the sky, which had already begun to crack. Their pupils shrank to the size of needles. It's actually broken. How can General Fei Long be so strong? How is this possible? This is a defensive Yuan array set up by a perfect grade 3 Arcana master. How can it be broken so easily? It's over. We're really done for this time. Everyone fell into despair as they stared at the cracks on the defensive Yuan array. Rumble. In the end, the cracks on the surface of the defensive Yuan array continued to expand. In the end, they covered the entire surface of the defensive Yuan array. Then, a sound similar to glass shattering could be heard. Following which, the colorful defensive Yuan array was turned into fine powder in front of everyone's eyes. Can a mere third-grade origin formation really stop this general's footsteps? You're all too naive. General Fei Long laughed wantonly. Then, he looked down and said, however, I'll give you all a chance. Hand over that little brat Zhuoan and I'll be merciful and let you all go. General Fei Long was in a good mood after obtaining the Tiangang earthly fiend puppet. Back then, LV Yongsheng had only asked him to capture Zhuowen alive. As for massacring the city, it was just a matter of convenience. However, now that General Fei Long was in a good mood, he could let go of these people who were like ants in his eyes. You're really here for Zhuowen. However, if you want us to hand over Zhuowen, don't even think about it. Even if you slaughter the entire Zhuo family, we won't hand over Zhuowen. Zhuo Xiangding took a step forward and stared fearlessly at General Fei Long in the sky as he replied coldly. That's right. You want us to hand over Zhuowen? No way. Zhuowen is the pride of our Zhuo family. Even if you kill us, don't even think about finding out where Zhuowen is. Immediately, one by one, the members of the Zhuo family followed Zhuo Xiangding and stepped forward. They looked fearlessly at General Fei Long in the sky, their faces filled with the determination to face death. Every member of the Zhuo family knew that the reason why the Zhuo family could develop so quickly was because of Zhuowen. Zhuowen was their pride, their hope, and the backbone of the entire Zhuo family. Even if everyone in the Zhuo family died, they would not let a genius like Zhuowen fall because of them. What a bunch of ants that don't know life from death. Since you dare to reject this general, then all of you can die. General Fei Long's eyes narrowed and were filled with a deep chill. He suddenly pressed down with his right hand, and the yuan qi around his body transformed into a giant palm that viciously pressed downwards. Zhuo Xiangding and the numerous members of the Zhuo family behind him calmly looked at the descending yuan qi palm. Not a single one of them cowered or retreated. They were already prepared to die. They knew very well that it didn't matter if they died. As long as Zhuowen didn't die, the Zhuo family would still be able to rise. They all believed that Zhuowen had the potential and talent to do so. Bang! Just as the giant yuan qi palm was about 3 meters away from Zhuo Xiangding and the others, a blood-red shadow suddenly burst out from the depths of the Zhuo family. Its speed was almost unimaginable, and in the blink of an eye, it slammed into the yuan qi palm. Boom! An ear-piercing explosion sounded. Under the attack of the blood-red shadow, the surging yuan qi palm actually crumbled into nothingness. Who is it? General Fei Long's pupils shrank as he looked at the crumbling yuan qi palm. It was only then that he saw that the blood-red shadow was actually a long blood-red spear that was about 3 meters long. It's me, your old man. A clear voice suddenly burst out from the depths of the Zhuo family. Then, a slender figure stepped through the air and arrived above the Zhuo family in an instant. He reached out with his right hand and grabbed the blood-red spear that was hovering in mid-air. He stared indifferently at General Fei Long half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm. I never thought that the Zhuo family would be hiding a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Moreover, he's so young. Who are you? General Fei Long narrowed his eyes as he stared at the young man who was stepping through the air. He asked in a somewhat serious tone. Although a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert had yet to truly step into the Ultimate Emperor Realm, he could already walk through the air for a short period of time. However, there was still a gap between him and a true Ultimate Emperor Realm expert who could walk through the air as if it were flat ground. The young man in front of him didn't conceal his aura at all. The unique aura of a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert emanated from his body, forming countless tiny whirlpools that spun around him. Didn't I say that I'm your old man? I'm your father. Are you deaf just now? Or did you just ignore your father's words? The person who had appeared in the air was none other than Zhuowen. At this moment, he was staring at General Fei Long with eyes filled with undisguised killing intent. He had clearly sensed that General Fei Long really wanted to kill Zhuo Xiangding and the others. Zhuowen! Zhuowen! Haha! Zhuowen broke through in the end. It looks like we're saved. Excited shouts suddenly rang out from below. Everyone's gazes were fervently fixed on the not-so-burly figure in the sky. Zhuowen really did break through and reach the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm. Ji Yuxin, who was standing behind Ji Yutian, felt the most conflicted as he stared at the figure in the air. The young man who hadn't attracted his attention in the past had not only done many shocking things, but now he could only look up to him. General Fei Long's expression darkened when he heard Zhuowen's sharp words. Based on the discussions below, He knew that the young man in front of him was the reason he'd come to Rattan Armor City. He was also the person that second Prince LV Yongsheng wanted him to capture alive. Why is this young man called Zhuowen so strange? He was clearly born in a low-level city, but he's already a half-step ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Moreover, he's not even 20 years old. This guy, his talent is a little too terrifying, isn't it? General Fei Long couldn't help but feel shocked when he sensed the powerful aura emanating from Zhuowen and associated it with the young man's age and birthplace. If this young man had the resources of the House of Marquis Qin, wouldn't he have reached the half-step ultimate Emperor realm a long time ago? Since we've already incurred the wrath of such a monstrous genius, we must nip him in the bud. Otherwise, he'll definitely be a huge problem once he matures. General Fei Long slowly raised his Dragonslayer saber and pointed the sharp blade at Zhuowen's forehead. He said coldly, "Judging by your appearance, you've probably just broken through to the half-step ultimate Emperor realm. You haven't even stabilized your strength before coming out of seclusion. In your current state, I only need one move to kill you. If you don't want to die, you'd best bind your arms and let me take you back to see the second prince." "You want your old man to bind my arms and follow you? What a clever idea you have, you bastard. Do you think I'm as stupid as you? What a self-righteous pig." Zhuowen shot a glance at General Fei Long and cursed without restraint. "Arrogant brat. I'm going to kill you today." General Fei Long was stunned at first, then his face turned green and red. When had he ever been cursed at like this? General Fei Long had long since gone mad with rage. Boom. Taking a step in the air, General Fei Long raised his large saber and directly swept towards Zhuowen. He flicked his large saber upwards and then fiercely smashed it downwards. Valiant origin energy instantly surged out. "Die! Dragon Rebel Slash!" General Fei Long roared and used the reverse Dragon Slash once again. In an instant, his huge blade smashed down. A huge blade shadow entwined with a dragon shadow came crashing down on Zhuowen's head from the void. It's the Dragon Rebel Slash again. This move is too powerful. Can Zhuowen block it? Zhuo Xiangding asked worriedly from below. After all, Zhuowen had only just broken through to the half-step ultimate Emperor realm, while General Fei Long was much stronger than the average half-step ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. The Dragon Rebel Slash was so powerful that it directly destroyed the defensive origin formation that Zhuowen had personally set up. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was expressionless. He was only staring at the saber shadow with the dragon shadow that was descending from the void. When the saber shadow was a few feet away from Zhuowen, he moved. Clang! The 5 fingers on Zhuowen's right hand moved and the spear in his palm spun violently. Next, Zhuowen's acupoints opened up and strands of thick blood energy gushed out from his acupoints to swirl around his body. Under the guidance of the spinning spear in his hand, the blood-red aura immediately formed a blood-red vortex around Zhuowen. The blood-red vortex began to change as it spun, turning into blood-red maple leaves. The maple leaves were all formed from the blood-red aura. Third move of the Moon Fiend secret manual, Blood Maple Dance. With a soft whisper, the blood-colored maple leaves that bloomed in front of Zhuowen lined up in a dense array. With a stomp of his foot, Zhuowen actually flew straight towards the blade image that was slashing down. "Since you're so eager to die, then you can die." General Fei Long sneered when he saw Zhuowen not dodging. With a move of his right hand, the saber shadow in the air sped up again and instantly smashed into the countless blood-red maple leaves in front of Zhuowen. Sizzle sizzle. Countless blood-red maple leaves were extremely corrosive. When the saber shadow came into contact with the blood-red maple leaves, it immediately produced a thick white smoke. The saber shadow was actually corroded by the blood-red maple leaves and gradually shrank. What? Why are the blood-red maple leaves in front of this brat so corrosive? General Fei Long was shocked when he saw the saber shadow being completely corroded. But the power of the Dragon Rebel Slash isn't just this. Zhuowen, be careful. The real attack of this guy's Dragon Rebel Slash is the Dragon Shadow. The saber shadow is just a cover. At this moment, Zhuo Xiangding suddenly shouted with an anxious expression. Unfortunately, Zhuo Xiangding's shout came a little too late. The dragon shadow, which had been accumulating power, had already found a gap in the blood-red maple leaves. Like a viper hunting for its prey, it passed through the blood-red maple leaves at a tricky angle and directly bombarded Zhuowen's body. In an instant, Zhuowen's entire body was engulfed in an intense explosion. It's over. Zhuowen was actually hit by the dragon shadow. Zhuo Xiangding's face was deathly pale as he muttered to himself with a gloomy expression. The scene instantly fell into a heavy silence. Everyone's eyes were filled with despair. They knew that once Zhuowen died, they naturally wouldn't be able to live either. Overestimating yourself, brat? But it won't be easy to explain if you're dead. Looks like I can only bring your corpse back. General Fei Long shook his head and sneered. The power of this move isn't bad, but it's far from enough to finish me off. Chapter 333. Blood Dragon Prison World. Zhuowen slowly walked out of the dense explosion zone. The explosions around him actually produced ear-piercing sounds of metal clashing against metal when they hit his body. It was as if the explosions weren't hitting a frail body, but hard rock instead. At this moment, the surface of Zhuowen's body was flowing with a translucent, crystalline color. This was the effect of the 6th level of the Jadestone Body Tempering Manual. After all, Zhuowen's current physical strength was comparable to a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Even General Fei Long's draconic attacks couldn't do much damage to his body. This guy, how is his body so strong? Even the Dragon Rebel Slash is useless against him? General Fei Long's pupils shrank as he stared at the young man slowly walking towards him in disbelief. Everyone below also stared at the completely unharmed Zhuowen with bulging eyes. At first, they were stunned, but then they revealed looks of pleasant surprise. So strong. He actually blocked the Dragon Rebel Slash. It looks like we're saved. Right now, Zhuowen was their only savior. The stronger Zhuowen was, the greater their chances of survival. Zhuowen tilted his head and stared coldly at the surprised General Fei Long. Are you tickling me? General Fei Long's expression gradually turned cold. He said icily, it looks like you've cultivated a body tempering technique before. I'm truly surprised that you can temper your body to such a degree. However, the Dragon Rebel Slash was only one of my ordinary moves. I wonder if you can still receive my next move so easily. General Fei Long snorted coldly. He wasn't the slightest bit worried about Zhuowen's powerful body. After all, Zhuowen had only just broken through to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. Although Zhuowen's defensive strength had surprised him, he was certain that Zhuowen's offensive strength wouldn't be that high. General Fei Long's speed soared to the extreme as he slashed with the broadsword in his right hand. Along the way, he left behind a series of afterimages as he approached Zhuowen in an instant. Then, he swung his broadsword from bottom to top, ruthlessly chopping at Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless. He could feel that General Fei Long's strength was much stronger than He Hua's during the 9 Extreme Emperor Elemental Pond competition. In particular, General Fei Long's speed was very fast. Even Zhuowen could only capture the guy's movement trajectory. It wasn't easy to see his figure clearly. He swung his spear downwards and blocked General Fei Long's broadsword. At the same time, Zhuowen's right knee was like a venomous snake as it instantly smashed towards General Fei Long's abdomen. This knee strike was so powerful that it almost caused the air to flow backwards. General Fei Long's figure shifted, and he actually dodged Zhuowen's tricky knee strike in an extremely slippery manner. Then, he changed the direction of his saber and directly slashed horizontally at Zhuowen's waist. With a cold snort, Zhuowen's mind moved. The countless blood-colored maple leaves on the surface of his body immediately formed a blood-colored shield around his waist, instantly blocking the broadsword that was slashing horizontally at him. At the same time, the remaining blood-colored maple leaves turned into countless blood-colored spirals and swept towards General Fei Long's forehead with a whoosh. Damn it! General Fei Long was shocked. He hurriedly withdrew his saber to block the incoming blood-colored spirals. He was very clear that these blood-colored spirals were very corrosive. If they hit his body, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. Good chance. A glint flashed across Zhuowen's eyes. Taking advantage of the fact that General Fei Long was blocking the blood-colored spirals, He tightened his grip and fiercely threw the demon moondragon spine spear at General Fei Long. The spear directly hit General Fei Long's chest. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. Immediately after, General Fei Long's face turned red. He was actually sent flying by the force of the spear that was swinging towards him. He involuntarily spat out a mouthful of blood. Boom! When he was sent flying 30 meters away, the energy within General Fei Long's body surged out. He borrowed the force of the recoil to stabilize his body in midair. His right hand clutched his chest as he gloomily looked at the youth in front of him. What's wrong with this kid? He's clearly just advanced to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. Not only does he have a physical body that even a half-step Ultimate Emperor realm expert would find difficult to deal with, but his attack power is even stronger than mine. General Fei Long's heart was filled with fear as he looked at the youth in front of him. The youth in front of him gave him a feeling that he couldn't defeat him. This kid must be captured. Otherwise, the third prince won't let me go. It looks like I'll have to use that move to defeat this kid. General Fei Long's expression became extremely solemn. Then, he lightly wiped the blade with his right hand. Almost the entire surface of the blade was dyed a bright red with fresh blood. Then, the blade actually absorbed the blood drop by drop. A rather strange aura slowly emanated from the blade. Kid. There aren't many cultivators who can force me to use this move. In the past, I used this move to trap an Ultimate Emperor realm expert. That's how I managed to escape from that Ultimate Emperor realm expert. Although you're very strong, it's basically impossible for you to survive this move of mine. That's why I'm giving you one last chance. Bind your arms and follow me back to the house of Marquis Qin. Otherwise, die. General Fei Long's face was filled with killing intent. He stared straight at Zhuowen, his eyes cold and merciless. You talk too much. Die. Zhuowen didn't even bother with General Fei Long. He took a step forward and charged at General Fei Long with his spear in hand. His spear pierced through the air and stabbed at General Fei Long. Since you want to die, don't blame me. Blood Dragon Prison Domain, bind. General Fei Long snorted coldly and stopped his blade in front of him. In an instant, his entire blade was covered in a dense blood-red color. A thick stench of blood spread out. At the same time, numerous blood dragons appeared in an area of several dozen meters around General Fei Long. The blood dragons were several dozen meters long, and there were a total of 10 blood dragons around them. These 10 blood dragons enveloped an area of several dozen meters around them. For a moment, a bloody light filled the air, turning the surroundings into a world of blood. Within this world of blood, the gravity had increased by several dozen times. As soon as Zhuowen entered this world of blood, his body sank and his knees couldn't help but bend. However, after adapting to the gravity, Zhuowen stood up once more and stared at the world of blood around him with a grave expression. Kid. The Blood Dragon Prison Domain uses my essence blood as a primer to activate a powerful sealing formation. This formation can both attack and defend. It's so powerful that it can practically crush all half-step Ultimate Emperor realm experts. It can even trap a first-cycle Ultimate Emperor realm expert for 15 minutes. So, you're dead for sure. Savage laughter slowly rang out from above the world of blood. Zhuowen raised his head and saw General Fei Long floating in the air, coldly staring down at Zhuowen. 10 huge blood dragons circled around General Fei Long, making General Fei Long seem mysterious and powerful. Oh! Did you use your blood essence for this move? Due to the powerful gravity within the world of blood, Zhuowen's body felt as heavy as a mountain. He couldn't fly at all. However, Zhuowen didn't show the slightest trace of worry on his face. Instead, a faint smile appeared on his face. General Fei Long was a little surprised when he saw that the kid was still smiling even though he was about to die. However, he quickly shook his head and said, "Looks like this kid's mind isn't clear anymore. But that's fine too. I'll just kill you now." With that, General Fei Long looked down from above and suddenly pressed down with his right hand. The 10 blood dragons in the sky behind him suddenly roared and directly flew down, pouncing towards Zhuowen's tiny figure. At this moment, there wasn't a trace of fear or worry on Zhuowen's face. Instead, the smile on his face grew even wider. Within the Zhuo mansion, everyone was looking at the blood-colored sphere that was several hundred feet in size in the sky. That blood-colored sphere was the blood dragon prison world that General Fei Long had unleashed. At this moment, the surface of the blood dragon prison world was covered in a blood-red color and it was impossible to see what was happening inside. This blood dragon prison world is much stronger than the dragon rebel slash at the beginning. Will Zhuowen be able to withstand it? Zhuo Xiangding said anxiously. Zhuo family head, don't worry. Even if our young friend Zhuowen isn't a match for General Fei Long, he's still a grade 3 Arcana master. He must have a lot of life-saving items on him. I think he should have some confidence in escaping from General Fei Long. Jiu Yutian comforted him softly. I hope so. With a sigh, Zhuo Xiangding once again focused his gaze on the blood-red sphere in the sky. However, in his heart, he was silently praying for Zhuowen's safety. Within the blood dragon prison world, 10 blood-red dragons opened their bloody mouths and flew towards Zhuowen. When they were within 10 feet of Zhuowen, Zhuowen raised his head slightly and raised the blood-red spear in his hand. He muttered softly, 5th style of the Moon Demon Secret Manual, Blood Explosion Style. General Fei Long, by using the blood dragon prison world, you're seeking your own death. The moment Zhuowen's voice rang out, a thick blood aura suddenly condensed around his body. The blood-red dragons that were about to descend suddenly stopped about 10 feet away from him. Then, the 10 blood-red dragons exploded and turned into a pool of blood. Boom boom boom. Continuous explosions rang out. The 10 blood-red dragons around Zhuowen all exploded into pools of blood without exception. These pools of blood surrounded Zhuowen's body and formed palm-sized blood beads. 5th style of the Moon Demon Secret Manual, Blood Explosion Style. Originally, it could absorb the opponent's blood and form a pool of blood that could explode at any time around the caster. However, the prerequisite for using the blood explosion style was the existence of the enemy's blood. Now that General Fei Long had sacrificed his blood essence, it just happened to meet the requirements for using the blood explosion style. What did this guy do? Why did my blood-red dragons explode and all the blood from their explosions turn into blood beads that surround this guy's body? Looking at the 10 blood-red dragons that had exploded and died instantly, General Fei Long's pupils shrank and he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. For this kind of question, you'd better ask the King of Hell when you reach the underworld. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. With a stomp of his foot, he charged towards General Fei Long with countless blood beads. The blood beads around his body were like countless grenades that blasted towards General Fei Long, who was in a daze in the sky. Boom boom boom. Chapter 334. The Fall of General Fei Long. Boom. Boom. Inside the Zhuo mansion, everyone lifted their heads to look at the sky. Above their heads, the blood-colored ball that spanned over 100 feet had actually produced an extremely loud explosion. Following which, the blood-colored ball abruptly split into two like a watermelon. Following which, a figure was thrown out from the sky. Everyone's gazes were tightly fixed on the figure that was thrown out. Their hearts were already extremely nervous. This battle concerned the life and death of Rattan Armor City. If Zhuowen was defeated, their Rattan Armor City would really be annihilated. Swoosh! Another figure suddenly shot out from the blood-colored sphere that had already split apart. In an instant, they approached the figure that was flying backwards. Both of their hands tightened around the hilt of their spears, and they viciously smashed the figure's chest. Then, the figure fell to the ground like a meteor, smashing a huge crater in the ground. Dust filled one's vision like rain. At this moment, everyone's gazes were gathered on the figure that was still floating in the sky. When they saw the figure's face clearly, everyone cheered, and their faces were filled with joy. It's Zhuowen. In the end, Zhuowen won. I never thought that General Fei Long, who was so powerful that he made us feel suffocated, would actually be defeated by Zhuowen. Gazing at the figure that was floating in the sky with a spear in his hand, everyone in the Zhuo mansion's eyes were filled with respect. Even the city lord of Rattan Armor City, Jiu Yutian, was no exception. Swoosh! In the air, Zhuowen's feet lightly stepped, and he gracefully landed on the ground like a swallow. He slowly walked towards the crater, and his gaze coldly stared at General Fei Long, who was so heavily injured that he could barely move. At this moment, General Fei Long's body was covered with wounds. The originally sturdy black armor had been shattered into countless pieces, revealing the wounds that were riddled with wounds. Earlier, you said that you would bring me back to the house of Marquis Qin. Could it be that you were sent by that fellow Lu Yuanhua? The tip of the spear was pointed at General Fei Long's neck. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes, and they were filled with coldness. The General Fei Long in front of him was vicious and merciless. He had almost massacred the members of the Zhuo family. If it wasn't for the doubts in his heart, Zhuowen would have already killed this General Fei Long. Why would he waste his breath? As for Mu Qin Marquis estate, he had some grudges with the third prince, Lu Yuanhua. Kid, since you know that this general is from the house of Marquis Qin, then you'd better let this general go. Otherwise, the wrath of the house of Marquis Qin isn't something that you can bear. At this moment, General Fei Long also knew that the youth in front of him was terrifying. His face no longer had the slightest trace of arrogance and disdain. Instead, it became extremely serious. However, he was still confident in the prestige of the house of Marquis Qin. He believed that since the youth in front of him knew his identity, he naturally wouldn't dare to kill him. Crack! He raised his right foot and fiercely stomped down on General Fei Long's right arm. The crisp sound of bones breaking abruptly rang out. I'm asking you, were you sent by Lu Yuanhua? Zhuowen's gaze was filled with coldness. Ah, you. General Fei Long held his right arm and glared at the youth in front of him with hatred in his eyes. Crack! Raising his right leg again, Zhuowen stomped down on General Fei Long's other arm. The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out again. My patience isn't very good. If you still don't speak, I don't mind taking care of you immediately. Tightening his right hand, the Moon Demon Dragon's Pine Spear suddenly shot out. It stopped a few feet away from General Fei Long's neck. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with thick killing intent. Gulp. General Fei Long couldn't help but gulp. He didn't think that the youth in front of him would be so daring. Even though he knew that he was a general of the house of Marquis Qin, he still didn't give him any face. He could feel the deep killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. He knew that if he really didn't answer Zhuowen's question, he really would be killed. I'll speak. I am a general under the second prince's command. At the same time, I'm also his right-hand man. He was the one who sent me on this mission to destroy Rattan Armor City. However, from the second prince's words, I can tell that this mission is related to the third prince. General Fei Long secretly glanced at Zhuowen, who had a cold expression on his face. He didn't dare to hide anything and told Zhuowen everything he knew. Hearing General Fei Long's story, Zhuowen's expression became more and more serious. He didn't think that Lu Yuanhua's second brother would also make a move. It seems that the conflict between Lu Yuanhua and I will be very difficult to resolve. Frowning slightly, Zhuowen's expression also became more and more serious. After all, Lu Yuanhua was the third prince of the house of Marquis Qin. Whether it was in terms of status or influence, he was much stronger than Zhuowen. If Lu Yuanhua really wanted to use the house of Marquis Qin's influence to deal with Zhuowen, even 100 Rattan Armor cities wouldn't be enough to destroy him. General Fei Long had also mentioned that the second prince of the house of Marquis Qin was also a powerhouse on the Qing Huang leaderboard. It was said that he had already reached the ultimate emperor stage. Even Lu Yuanhua, who had lost to him before, had broken through to the ultimate emperor stage. The house of Marquis Qin is indeed rich and imposing. Lu Yuanhua was actually able to ascend to the ultimate emperor stage in such a short period of time. I'm afraid that they must have spent an enormous amount of resources to do so. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. His heart was filled with helplessness. The house of Marquis Qin was simply too powerful. In the entire Muqin prefecture, it was like an insurmountable mountain. Zhuowen looked at General Fei Long and asked, I heard that if a cultivator can enter the top 100 in the Vitality Tower battle, they will become a distinguished guest of the house of Marquis Qin and enjoy the same treatment as the crown prince. Is that true? Indeed. After all, The Vitality Tower Battle is a selection of geniuses in a prefecture. The true purpose of the Vitality Tower Battle is the battle of the 9 counties that the entire Qing Xian Empire wants to hold. The top 100 geniuses selected from the Vitality Tower Battle are all qualified to participate in the Battle of the 9 counties. That is already a contest between the geniuses of each prefecture. Therefore, as long as a genius can enter the top 100 in the Vitality Tower Battle, the Marquis of Muqin will definitely do his best to nurture him in the hopes of achieving good results in the Battle of the 9 county. It is only natural that such a genius can receive the same treatment as the Crown Prince. At this point, General Fei Long looked at Zhuowen strangely and sneered, "Don't tell me you're planning to enter the top 100 in the Vitality Tower Battle. With your strength, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. I think you should give up on this idea as soon as possible. Also, you have offended the 2nd Crown Prince and the 3rd Crown Prince. If you participate in the Vitality Tower Battle, you will undoubtedly die." Pest. Coldly looking down at General Fei Long in the deep pit, Zhuowen suddenly reached out with his right hand. The tip of the spear that was only a few inches away from General Fei Long directly pierced his neck, causing blood to spurt out. I've already said so much. You actually went back on your word." General Fei Long glared at Zhuowen with resentment before slowly falling to the ground, lifeless. "I never said I would let you go. You misunderstood me." Pulling out the spear, Zhuowen glanced at General Fei Long's corpse one last time before walking back to the Zhuo residence. At this moment, many people from the Zhuo residence were already running towards Zhuowen. Among them, Zhuo Xiangding and Jiyu Yutian were the fastest. They quickly arrived in front of Zhuowen. "Zhuowen, are you all right?" Zhuo Xiangding looked at Zhuowen with a somewhat anxious gaze as he asked. Looking at the anxious Zhuo Xiangding, Zhuowen felt warmth in his heart. However, he slightly shook his head and said, "I'm fine." "Zhuowen, where's General Fei Long?" Jiyu Yutian seemed to be looking for something as he asked cautiously. "Jiyu Cheng, don't worry. General Fei Long has already been taken care of by me." With a faint smile, Zhuowen pointed behind him. There was a deep pit and General Fei Long's corpse was lying in it. He died with his eyes wide open. Seeing General Fei Long's corpse in the deep pit, Jiyu Yutian finally relaxed and let out a sigh of relief. Following which, he looked at Zhuowen with reverence. General Fei Long, who was almost invincible in their eyes, had actually been taken care of by Zhuowen in the end. "Brother Zhuowen." At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from behind Jiyu Yutian. When Zhuowen heard the voice, he turned around and saw Jiyu Xin with a smile on his face. "So it's brother Jiyu Xin. I heard from Jiyu Cheng that you were in seclusion. It seems that you've come out now." Nodding slightly, Zhuowen was a little surprised that Jiyu Xin had reached the Earth Monarch stage. One had to know that Jiyu Xin was only at the peak of the corporeal yang stage 2 years ago. "Jiyu Cheng, let's set off for the provincial capital tomorrow," Zhuowen suddenly said to Jiyu Yutian with a serious expression. Jiyu Yutian was startled and hesitated. He was also aware of the conflict between Zhuowen and Lu Yuanhua. With Lu Yuanhua's vengeful personality, he would probably cause trouble for Zhuowen once the battle for the Vitality Tower began. "All right. Tomorrow, I will inform the Huban sect and have Hu Wuying come to Rattan Armor City. I will bring the 3 of you there then." Although he was worried about Lu Yuanhua's revenge, Jiyu Yutian knew that General Fei Long had died in their Rattan Armor City. Even if they didn't participate in the Vitality Tower battle, Lu Yuanhua would have more time to take revenge after it ended. "Jiyu Cheng, are you afraid of Lu Yuanhua's revenge?" Zhuowen also saw the hesitation on Jiyu Yutian's face. Jiyu Yutian revealed a wry smile. He couldn't help but look at General Fei Long's corpse and nod with a sigh. "The Vitality Tower battle will begin in 3 months. Lu Yuanhua won't have time to take care of us. If he wants to take revenge, he will have to wait until after the Vitality Tower battle. If I can make it into the top 100, then I will become an honored guest of the House of Marquis Qin. My status will be on par with Lu Yuanhua's. At that time, he won't dare to do anything," Zhuowen said with confidence. "Top 100 in the Essence Tower battle?" Upon hearing this, The bitter smile on Jiu Tian's face grew even more intense. It was not that he did not believe in Zhuo Wen's strength, but the difficulty of ranking in the top 100 of the Vitality Tower battle was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. One had to fight for the only 100 spots among hundreds of thousands of geniuses, and the competition was extremely cruel. Even though Zhuo Wen was a quasi-ultimate Emperor realm cultivator at such a young age, there were quite a few people in Muqin County who were stronger than him. Chapter 335. Ready to go. The Heavenly Armor continent was vast, spanning hundreds of billions of miles. Even a saint would find it difficult to search the entire Heavenly Armor continent. The vast Heavenly Armor continent was divided into 5 major regions, namely the Eastern Land, the Western Region, the Southern Barbarian, the North Pole, and the Central Plains. These 5 regions were extremely vast, and there were countless forces of various sizes living in them. In the Eastern Lands, one of the 5 great regions, the strongest power was the famous Blue Dragon Hall. Ranked second in the Blue Dragon Hall was the Blue Dragon Hall. Although the Blue Dragon Hall was ranked second, its influence was much deeper than the Blue Dragon Hall. Moreover, the Divine Academy's overall strength was only slightly weaker than the Blue Dragon Hall. Even the Blue Dragon Hall was extremely wary of a power like the Divine Academy. Excellent God Institute was located in an extremely mysterious area in the far north of the Eastern Lands. As for its exact location, even the Blue Dragon Hall had not been able to detect it. It could be said that Excellent God Institute was extremely mysterious. In the northernmost part of the Eastern Lands, numerous snowy peaks towered between the heavens and the earth. No one dared to pass through the area, and even birds and ferocious beasts were rarely seen in this place. A graceful figure stood quietly on top of the snowy mountain peak. Her gem-like eyes were looking at the distant horizon. If anyone was here, they would know that she was in the direction of the Qing Xian Empire. This graceful figure was a young woman around the age of 18. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her eyes were like pools of clear water. As she looked around, she possessed an elegant and noble bearing that caused others to feel ashamed of their inferiority and not dare profane her. However, that arrogance and quick-wittedness of hers had a captivating aura that made one unable to help but be captivated. The young girl's jade-like feet were bare, and beneath her sparkling and translucent feet, a verdant red lotus floated. The fiery red lotus and the young girl's snow-white skin contrasted with each other in an extremely holy and pure manner. This young girl was none other than Mu Chunxue, the one who had a connection with Zhuowen in the ancient cave. However, at this moment, the girl's eyes were no longer as cold and arrogant as before. Instead, there was a trace of melancholy and some fluctuations. Whoosh! At this moment, a figure landed behind Mu Chunxue and knelt on one knee. He said respectfully, "Miss." Mu Chunxue gracefully turned around and looked at the old man in front of her. Her originally cold eyes had a trace of gentleness. She bit her lower lip and said with some hesitation, "Elder Qiu, I wonder how Zhuowen is doing lately." Old Qiu glanced at Mu Chunxue and said in a low voice, "That little fellow has been living quite comfortably recently. In 3 months, the Muqin County of the Qing Xian Empire will hold the Battle of the Vitality Pagoda. That little fellow should be participating in the Battle of the Vitality Pagoda." At this point, Elder Qiu suddenly looked deeply at Mu Chunxue and frowned. "Miss, ever since we left the Ancient Era's cave, you've been paying so much attention to that little fellow called Zhuowen." "Elder Qiu, this has nothing to do with you. It's just that I'm interested in that fellow. If there's nothing else, you can leave." Mu Chunxue's eyes regained their coldness as she said indifferently. Elder Qiu nodded helplessly. He then cupped his hands and disappeared from the snowy peak. After Elder Qiu left, Mu Chunxue's cold eyes once again looked towards the horizon of the Qing Xian Empire. Her cherry lips slightly opened as she muttered to herself, "Is the Battle of the Vitality Pagoda about to begin? Zhuowen, if you want to enter the Jioshan Academy, you must stand out in the Qing Xian Empire. If you can't do it, then it only proves that we are not fated to be together." Early in the morning, when the first ray of warm sunlight shone down, the Godstone Plaza of Ratanama City was already packed with people. Most of these people were from the Zhuo mansion and the city lord's mansion. There was also a portion of people from other factions who had come to watch the show. These spectators all cast their gazes towards the center of the Godstone Plaza. In the center, there were 3 figures that were the most dazzling. These 3 figures were the representatives of Ratanama City to participate in the Battle of the Vitality Pagoda: Zhuoan, Ji Yuxin, and Hu Wuiying. The Huban Gate that Hu Wuiying was from was rather far from Ratanama City. Fortunately, Jiu Tian had already warned the person in charge of the Huban Gate. Therefore, Hu Wuiying and his master, Hu Xiao, had made it to Ratanama City in time. Hu Wuiying's talent was not bad. After 2 years, he had also advanced to the Earth King stage. His strength was slightly weaker than Ji Yuxin's. However, when Hu Wuiying and Hu Xiao found out that Zhuoan had actually reached the Ultimate Emperor stage, they both revealed looks of disbelief. They knew that although Zhuoan's performance during the Battle of the Quotas was very stunning, it wasn't as abnormal as this. Especially after hearing about some of Zhuoan's past achievements, their disbelief quickly turned into disbelief. However, Hu Wuiying was a free and easy person. He didn't show any signs of comparison. Instead, he admired Zhuoan even more. This made Zhuoan have a rather good impression of Hu Wuiying. In the center of the plaza, Zhuoan was standing with Zhuo Xiangding and the other members of the Zhuo family who had come to send him off. He swept his gaze across his clansmen and a trace of emotion flashed through his eyes. He knew that the Zhuo family had completely regarded him as their backbone. Zhuoan. We won't be able to accompany you to the provincial capital this time. Moreover, with this old man's weak strength, accompanying you will only be a burden. Therefore, you must be careful this time. It's fine as long as you can stay alive. Zhuo Xiangding patted Zhuoan's shoulder and said rather apologetically. After all, Zhuo Xiangding was the head of the Zhuo family. He couldn't leave the family at will. Otherwise, the Zhuo family would inevitably fall into a situation where they would be leaderless. Grandfather, don't worry, I understand. Zhuoan smiled faintly and said rather cautiously. At the same time, Zhuoan's eldest uncle, Zhuo Beitian, second uncle, Zhuo Dingtian, and other high-ranking members of the Zhuo family also bid farewell to Zhuoan. Naturally, they were rather reluctant to see him leave. Zhuoan, be careful on the road. You are now the pillar of our family. You can't die like this. That's right. Brother Zhuoan, you must think more about the Zhuo family. Without you, the Zhuo family won't be able to rise. Therefore, nothing must happen in this Vitality Tower battle. 2 crisp voices suddenly sounded in his ears. Then, 2 graceful figures walked out from the Zhuo family. One of them was elegant and charming, with skin whiter than snow. However, there was a trace of craftiness in her watery eyes. It was Zhuo Xiong, who was younger than Zhuoan. The other was tall, dignified, and elegant. Her rosy cheeks revealed a trace of charm. It was Zhuo Meishue, who was once an inner court disciple of the Zhuo family. As soon as the 2 women appeared, they attracted the attention of many people present. Although Zhuo Xiong and Zhuo Meishue's beauty couldn't be compared to Mu Chenshue's, they were still considered first-class beauties. Now that they walked together, they naturally formed a beautiful scene. Looking at the 2 beauties leisurely walking in front of him, Zhuoan's lips curled into a smile. After all, when the family participated in the market battle, he had fought side by side with these 2 women. Among the 2 women, Zhuo Xiong's talent was much higher. Now, she had advanced to the half-step Heavenly King stage, only half a step away from the Heavenly King stage. Zhuo Meishue's talent was relatively worse, only at the corporeal yang stage. In just a few years, the few young people in the family had grown sufficiently. Zhuo Xiong and Zhuo Meishue were now holding important positions in the family. Thank you. I won't die so easily. Looking at the 2 women in front of him, Zhuoan's heart was filled with emotion. As time passed and his strength continued to increase, he found that some things were getting farther and farther away from him. Although Zhuoan could see the concern in the eyes of the 2 women in front of him, the powerful aura on his body couldn't help but faintly separate the 2 women in front of him. The 2 women just looked at Zhuoan, but didn't approach him like before. It's getting late, we should set off. Now that you are the backbone of the family, I hope you can help grandfather carry the family forward. The next time I come back, I hope to see an even stronger Zhuo family. Zhuowen had never been a sloppy person. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and prepared to leave. At this moment, a somewhat shaky voice suddenly called out to Zhuowen. Zhuowen. Zhuowen's figure paused as he turned his head to look. A sliver of confusion appeared in his eyes as he saw a rather sturdy figure slowly walking out from behind Zhuo Xiong and Zhuo Meishue. This figure was dressed in a long black robe, and there was a trace of stubble at the corner of his mouth. He appeared somewhat taciturn. Zhuo Tian. Looking at the black-clothed man slowly walking over, Zhuowen recognized him at a glance. It was Zhuo Tian, who had a conflict with Zhuowen in the past. After being defeated by Zhuowen in the family competition, Zhuo Tian appeared to be very taciturn, and was no longer as insolent as before. Originally, Zhuowen didn't have the slightest bit of goodwill towards Zhuo Tian. However, Zhuowen's tenacity and unwillingness to submit during the market battle had changed Zhuowen's opinion of him. The current Zhuowen appeared to be more reserved and steady, and was no longer as impetuous as before. Zhuo Tian arrived in front of Zhuowen, and a complicated look flashed across his eyes. In the end, he gave a faint smile and extended his hand to Zhuowen, saying, "Have a safe journey. Our Zhuo family can't do without you." Zhuowen was startled, and also shook hands with Zhuo Tian. However, the moment their hands touched, Zhuowen's face changed, and his eyes lit up as he said, "Haha. Brother Zhuo Tian, congratulations. You are actually the third powerhouse in our Zhuo family to reach the Heavenly King stage." As soon as Zhuowen's words came out, it immediately caused an uproar in the Zhuo family. Everyone looked at Zhuo Tian's back with a hint of surprise in their eyes. What? Tian'er has also reached the Heavenly King stage? Why didn't this kid tell me all this time? Zhuo Xiangding, who was standing beside Zhuo Xiangding, was stunned at first, but then he said in ecstasy. Zhuo Beitian, Zhuo Xiangding, and the others were also startled at first, but then their faces lit up with joy. After all, the more powerhouses there were in the Zhuo family, the better. This would be beneficial to the continuous development of the Zhuo family. Zhuowen scratched his head and said somewhat embarrassedly, "Actually, it's all thanks to the elixirs that you brought back. That's why I was able to break through to the Heavenly King stage yesterday." Nodding slightly, Zhuowen could sense that Zhuo Tian's mentality had undergone a huge change after the market battle. In addition to Zhuo Tian's talent, which was originally not weak, and the support of a considerable amount of elixirs, it was reasonable for him to reach the Heavenly King stage. After glancing at Zhuo Tian, Zhuowen suddenly took out a jade token from his bosom and handed it to Zhuo Tian. This is Chapter 336. Towards the prefecture capital. Is this the Patriarch's identity token? Zhuowen, this. Looking at the jade token in Zhuowen's hand, Zhuo Tian was suddenly at a loss for what to do. An indescribable look of surprise appeared on his face. He had never thought that Zhuowen would actually give him such an important thing. When the many members of the Zhuo family saw the Patriarch's token in Zhuowen's hand, they could not help but be stunned. Their eyes were filled with doubt. Brother Zhuo Tian, since you were able to advance to the Heavenly King stage on your own, that means that you have the qualifications to receive this Patriarch's token. Grandfather is getting on in years and needs someone to help him share the burden of the family. However, I can't always stay in the family, so I'll have to rely on you for the family's matters. Patting Zhuo Tian's shoulder lightly, a trace of gentleness appeared in Zhuowen's eyes. With the resources he left in the family, Zhuo Tian's achievements would definitely not stop at the Heavenly King stage. It was very likely that he would reach the Earth King stage or even the Heavenly King stage. At that time, Zhuo Tian would definitely become the pillar of the Zhuo family. However, Zhuowen was very clear that it was impossible for him to stay in the family. After all, he still had to go to Jioshan Academy, leave Muqin County, and leave the Qingxian Empire. The only thing he could do was to leave more resources for the family. Grandfather, you won't object to my decision, right? After handing the Patriarch's token to Zhuo Xiangding, Zhuowen suddenly turned to Zhuo Xiangding and smiled. Haha. You little brat, Do you think your grandfather doesn't understand you? With your talent, the small rattan armor city will not be able to restrain you at all. You are destined to enter the vast outside world in the future. Since you have already made your decision, grandfather will naturally not object. Furthermore, I have observed Zhuo Tian for a long time. If he can assist this old man, it will be much easier for this old man. Zhuo Xiangding stroked his beard and laughed. His wrinkled old face was filled with gratification and joy. Thank you, Grandpa and Cousin Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuo Tian's eyes were filled with excitement. He respectfully bowed to Zhuowen and Zhuo Xiangding. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind to bring the Zhuo family to greater heights. He could not disappoint Zhuo Xiangding and Zhuowen, who trusted him. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen greeted the members of the Zhuo family and patted his Chenkuan bag. A green flying boat that was 10 feet wide immediately floated in the air above the plaza. The surface of the flying boat was overflowing with colorful lights. Green light filled the air and it looked quite dazzling. This boat was called Qing Fan Boat. It was a rather ordinary high-rank spiritual treasure. Back then, Zhuowen had considered the long journey from Rattan Armor City to the provincial capital. It would take at least half a year to get there by horse carriage. Thus, he had spent tens of thousands of emperor pills to buy this boat. Qing Fan Boat was only a low-rank spiritual treasure. This flying boat's ability was only fast. Its defense was not amazing at all. Originally, Zhuowen had wanted to buy a better flying boat. However, because he had bought puppet materials and spiritual treasures and spiritual herbs for the family, he did not have many emperor pills left. Thus, he had no choice but to buy the cheapest Qing Fan Boat. Although Qing Fan Boat was only a low-rank spiritual treasure, in the eyes of many warriors in Rattan Armor City, it was already a priceless treasure. After all, Rattan Armor City was only a low-level city. Even middle-rank spiritual treasures were extremely rare, let alone high-rank spiritual treasures. Furthermore, Qing Fan Boat was a rare mount spiritual treasure. It's actually a high-rank spiritual treasure. And it's a rare mount spiritual treasure. Zhuowen is really amazing. He can take out such a precious spiritual treasure so casually. I've only seen one high-rank spiritual treasure in my life. Many warriors around the square exclaimed in amazement. Some of them were even looking at him with envy. Brother Jiyu, Brother Hu, and Lord Jiyu, let's use this Qing Fan Boat to travel to the capital. Although this boat is only a high-rank low-rank spirit treasure, it is extremely fast. It will probably take less than a month to reach the provincial capital. After taking out the Qing Fan Boat, Zhuowen cupped his hands and smiled at Jiyu Xin, Hu Wuying, and the others. Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying looked at each other. There was a trace of bitterness at the corners of their mouths. The two of them increasingly felt that Zhuowen was far too mysterious. It was fine that he had cultivated for a shorter period of time than them, but his level of cultivation was much higher than theirs. However, he had casually taken out a high-grade soul treasure. This somewhat extravagant method was something that they could not see through. The two of you don't have to be surprised. Zhuowen is now a complete Grade 3 Arcana Master. His personal wealth is far more than our Castellan mansion. Alright, don't think too much. Let's go. Jiyu Tian was not too surprised. After all, Zhuowen had brought him too many surprises. Now, he was not that surprised. He patted Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying's shoulders and entered the Qing Fan Boat first. Brother Zhuo is actually a complete Grade 3 Arcana Master. That's really amazing, Hu Wuying whispered in surprise. It was also the first time he heard that Zhuowen's mental strength was so terrifying. Brother Zhuo is really talented. In this Origin Chi Tower battle, with Brother Zhuo, our Rattan Armor City has a high chance of entering the top 1000. When the time comes, we must follow Brother Zhuo's lead and cooperate with him. When the time comes, the forces behind us will be greatly benefited. After seeing Zhuowen kill General Fei Long, Jiyu Xin was already convinced by Zhuowen. She even had a trace of admiration for Zhuowen. This was a natural trace of respect for the strong. After all, the entire Heavenly Armor continent was a world where the strong were respected. Hu Wuying nodded slightly and entered the Qing Fan boat with Ji Yuxin. The interior of the Qing Fan boat was extremely spacious. It was divided into many rooms. Each room was fully equipped with furniture and clothes. The conditions were much better than an ordinary inn. This was an eye-opener for Ji Yu Tian and the other two. They were constantly amazed and full of praise. Standing at the bow of the Qing Fan boat, Zhuowen gazed deeply at the location of the Zhuo family. He gently waved his hand and directly activated the Qing Fan boat. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the Qing Fan boat was like a fish in water. It suddenly shot towards the sky at an extremely fast speed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Zhuowen, you must return safely. In the square, Zhuo Xiangding silently looked at the Qing Fan boat in the distance and could not help but mutter in a low voice. On the deck of the Qing Fan boat, Zhuowen, Ji Yuxin, Hu Wuying and Ji Yu Tian sat together in a circle. Zhuowen looked at Ji Yu Tian with a grave expression and asked, Lord Ji Yu, now is the time to tell us about the Vitality Tower? Zhuo Wen's question had also piqued the interest of Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying. The two of them were also very curious about the struggle for the Yuan Qi Tower. They all knew that the Yuan Qi Tower was an opportunity that all geniuses yearned for even in their dreams. There were even rumors of some unknown warriors who had used the Yuan Qi Tower as an opportunity to soar to the heavens. Now that the three of them were about to participate in such a grand event, they were naturally very curious about it. Ji Yu Tian smiled faintly, but his expression turned solemn. He said, It's time to tell you about the Vitality Tower. However, I don't know much about it. I only know that the battle for the Vitality Tower is very cruel. You all know that there was a catastrophe 10,000 years ago that ended the extremely glorious ancient era. Our heavenly armor continent also ushered in a somewhat sluggish modern era, which is the era we are in now. Legend has it that the Vitality Tower suddenly appeared after the catastrophe 10,000 years ago. As for the reason, I don't know. Hearing this, Zhuowen couldn't help but frown slightly as he muttered in a low voice, It actually appeared after the catastrophe 10,000 years ago. Could it be related to that catastrophe? The catastrophe 10,000 years ago was a secret of the entire continent. Basically, only a few people knew what had happened 10,000 years ago. Xiao He, who was hidden in Zhuowen's knowledge sea, was an existence that had survived from the ancient era. However, Xiao He was always secretive about the catastrophe, so Zhuowen couldn't get any clues from him. I won't say much about the origin of the Vitality Tower. I will now solemnly warn you that once you enter the Vitality Tower, you must be very careful. It is said that there are many dangers inside, and if you are not careful, you may lose your life. At this time, Ji Yu Tian cautioned cautiously. Moreover, there seems to be a great world inside, and there are also creatures living inside. As for what exactly they are, I am not very clear. Oh, it's a great world, and there's actually a great world in this tiny tower. This is truly shocking. Zhuowen was really surprised when he heard this. Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying beside him also revealed a strange expression. They knew that the Vitality Tower was located in the center of the county. Although it occupied a large area, it was unlikely to be so big that it contained a great world. It was likely that there was another world inside the Vitality Tower. There are many restrictions in the Vitality Tower. These restrictions are said to have been set up by the ancient era. It is because of these incredible restrictions that a great world can be derived from the Vitality Tower. Moreover, it is said that there are also humans living inside. The people outside call them the ancient era's survivors. As for what these ancient era's survivors look like, I have never seen them. Ji Yu Tian continued. After you enter the Vitality Tower, you have to be extra careful. Inside, even killing each other is allowed. That's why many geniuses will fall in every Vitality Tower battle. Of course, in return, many monstrous geniuses will be nurtured. Therefore, after entering the Vitality Tower, you must put your life first. Zhuowen and the other two nodded solemnly. It seemed that the Vitality Tower battle was far crueler than they had imagined. Moreover, the ancient era's survivors that Ji Yu Tian mentioned also aroused Zhuowen's interest. What kind of existence is the Vitality Tower? What does it have to do with the ancient era's catastrophe? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.